Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
It is Thursday here at Gillette Stadium.
Nailed it. If you're critiquing them for that, then you're just being selfish.
Yeah.
Like, you're just mad that you had to wake up.
I am selfish. This is going to be a problem all season between May and Mayo.
You have issues.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. Anyway.
And he has a little thing that goes around.
E and an O.
I just wonder, at some point, and I'm talking to you, Jerod, this is do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Don't,
So now you're telling them what to do.
Yeah. It would be our suggestion to you that you not speak. We wouldn't want anything to happen.
Why are you doing
What's
this?
going to happen?
Because we can just make fun of Italians anytime we want.
No,
That's
it's
why.
mob guys.
Oh, so now all Italians are mobbed up.
I didn't say that. You did. Okay. Stepped on another hornet's nest.
Another?
Saturday.
This has happened multiple times?
Oh, yeah.
Freddie, can you not step on hornet's nests?
I tell you, it's a jungle out there. Everything out there wants to kill you. It
Yeah.
didn't really snow that much. That means probably this year we're going to get killed.
Is that what the Farmer's Almanac is saying?
I don't go by that
Yeah,
anymore. They haven't
that's
read
tough.
right since the 40s.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
All right, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered. It is Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium. And most importantly, we're 2 days away from the opening of the NFL regular season. We're only a few days away from the Patriots traveling to Cincinnati to get ready to play the Bengals for their season opener. Life is exciting right now.
It's game week.
Can you feel the excitement?
I can.
Can you feel the electricity?
I feel the fall in the air. It's a little crisp this morning.
feel the fall in the
Football weather. It feels,
Yeah.
feels like the time is right
Football
to begin
weather.
the football campaign of 2024.
Yeah. It's Deuce, it's me, it's Paul, it's Evan, Matt in the booth. We're going to talk about the Patriots for the next 2 hours. A lot to talk about, obviously, as they get ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. But it seems like, previewing who the Bengals are kind of secondary to, just talking about the team itself and the state of the Patriots and what it's going to look like going into this game, because really no one has any idea. I mean, we kind of have an idea about the defense and what we think it should look like based on there's a lot of carryover from last year, even with coaches. There's carryover, but when it comes to the offense, for me at least, it's a whole new world. I have no clue what it's going to look like.
I think they're going to try to run the ball. I mean, that seems like that's what I kind of – that's the one thing to start, the starting point with the offense. But I've said it before. It's like, how productive are these wide receivers going to be? How effective is the passing game going to be? The pass protection, it seems like the injuries to Lowe and So have carried over into this week. So was not spotted, but he did talk at his locker room. It's a whole new world. And then, Lowe was out there, but have you said he was pretty limited? So
Right?
Yeah.
That's late development.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then, not to get into Bengals, but Jamar Chase is watching practice in a T-shirt as of yesterday still. So are they going to figure that out? It seems like the Bengals' whole offseason has been about everybody who wants to get paid now, and they're trying to figure out how to make it all work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were at practice yesterday, and there's Chukwuefor at left tackle. And then Nick Leverett and Michael Jordan were switching off at left guard because there's no City So right now. Robinson's still in Wenyu still has the right side. So that's what it's trending towards, I guess, is probably the starting five. And maybe at left guard there's going to be a little bit of a rotation between Leverett and Michael Jordan. But it's not exactly reassuring.
Listen,
Let's put it
I would
that
trade.
way.
I would trade for continuity, stability, and communication on the offensive line for Jamar Chase playing. If I could trade that, Jamar Chase is going to play for sure, but we knew who this offensive line was, and it was, stable. I'd trade that at this point.
Yeah.
That's a great
Give him a
PFW,
chance.
PU
Yeah.
debate right there.
Yeah.
No answer. There's no right answer.
Yeah.
There's no way of,
Does Chase just hop in and play? I mean, I think it's kind of.
I would rather have the other thing. I would rather
yeah.
have Chase not play,
Oh,
which
yeah.
it looks like is probably going to happen, because I think you'd be hard pressed to keep up with him if Chase was ready to go.
But I think they have other good receivers too. So and they still have Joe Burrow
They
and
have other good
It's
receiver.
changed over, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be some questions in the slot with Andre Yoshivas, I believe, as I always say, from Princeton, big athletic guy, which, we'll get into matchups, but
well, here we go.
things have changed.
You know,
Sorry.
Paul's. You know what Paul's doing? He's setting it up. If Chase doesn't
no.
play, the Patriots should win. If they don't,
I'm not setting it up for that.
you're not doing a Felger.
No, I'm not setting it up for that. I think they're going to have a hard time, but I think if Chase was 100% and ready to go, I think the Patriots offense would be hard-pressed to keep up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to
I'd
say.
say, too, in the 2022 game with the Browns with Brissett, that was Chase didn't play in that game, and they didn't, they weren't very productive. So that's no secret. He's a huge part of what they do, and it seems like Gesicki's their number one tight end now, too, which is a little bit strange.
Him and Drew Sample. Can I make the case for the Patriots for a second?
Make the case.
I'm going to make the case.
Make the case.
I'm saying there's a chance. I'm not picking the Patriots, but I'm saying there's a chance based off of some of the trends that you look at between these two teams. I think the biggest one being Jacoby Brissett trounced this team in 2022, just 2 years ago, 32-13 in that game in Cleveland. Played pretty well in that game. The Browns under Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt, 6-2 in 4 seasons against the Bengals. So they were kind of the thorn in the Bengals side in that division. It's one of those weird division matchups where the Browns own the Bengals, even though you probably would think it would be the other way around. Last trend, Joe Burrow in week ones. They are notoriously slow starters in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is 1-3 in week ones as the starter since he got drafted by the Bengals. So I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm not necessarily picking the Patriots, but there's always those matchups, especially division matchups, where somebody just knows something about the other team. And maybe Alex Van Pelt has that Pittsburgh Steeler blueprint that we're used to around here on Lou Anarumo. See, I knew I was going to butcher it.
Just Lou. Just go with Lou. We know who Lou is.
Anarumo. Maybe they just have the answers to the test.
Well, that division's always been crazy. I mean, even when the Browns were down, they would have good games, if not winning games, against the Steelers.
Yeah.
So that's always been a very competitive division amongst themselves.
I mean, how competitive, were a lot of the Patriot games in their division that over the years that, Miami was always tough. I mean, the Jets even, I know there were some mixed in trouncings in there too, but there were, overtime games against, teams going to Super Bowls, Patriots teams and Jets teams going nowhere. So I don't know. I mean, it's wishful thinking. I just feel like it's divisional. And
I think it's. This is not a Felger. I'm not trying to set it up, but it is a good time to play a team that is better than you on paper.
Sure.
At the start of the season, when there's a lot of newness and things aren't really buttoned down. Now, I will say, I think a lot of their week one issues in those 4 years have been related to Burrow. Burrow hasn't made it out of a training camp healthy, and this is the first time that he will in 4 years.
Yeah.
He's coming off a torn ACL, then an appendectomy, and then a calf strain. So he entered the season the last 3 straight years at well below 100%. This year he's not, but he's probably going to be missing his number one receiver.
And there's still time, right?
I don't know how you can just live with yourself.
A guy can hope.
He also he is coming off a major injury that ended last season.
Yeah,
so
but he didn't miss any time in camp. In the last
enough.
3 years, he's missed time in camp.
Yeah, even their month of September record is not very good in the Burrow era. They are just one of those teams that gets hot at the right time. You want to get hot post-Thanksgiving and then carry it into the playoffs, and that's how Cincinnati has been. If you're going to play Cincinnati, you want to play them in September.
And it doesn't strike me as the explosive offense that they've had in the past. So that's why I think it is a good time to get them. If the game is a little bit lower scoring, then that obviously favors the underdog.
Sure.
It keeps you in the game. Now, I do think Cincinnati should be a little bit better defensively than they were last year, but these things don't just work on paper. They brought in a couple of safeties that they think are going to help their secondary out, but doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yep.
With Geno Stone and Von Bell, they brought those two guys in, and they felt like that was a huge issue with them trying to replace Jesse Bates from the year before.
Yep.
Yeah. Trent Brown looks like he's going to be on the right
Trent
side.
Brown's going to have to start for Amarius Mims, who's doesn't look like he's going to play anyway. So.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
So back to the Patriots offense. Still uncertainty on the offensive line, even just based on the last thing that we saw at practice. They're still mixing and matching out there.
Yep.
We talked about this last week. Who's the Patriots' number one wide receiver?
I would say Demario Douglas.
Lining up where?
Wasn't that our answer last week?
He's their best receiver. I don't think they have a
Yeah.
number one receiver. I
Yeah.
think they're
In
hoping
the slot would be the answer, by the way.
Yeah.
to spread the ball around. You know, they'll have multiple guys contributing. I don't think they
He's
have a
their number
receiver.
one, but he's not a number one.
I know that bothers you. I don't really understand why you don't see the differentiation.
I
Well,
just, you know.
He's not yet.
And he's not an X.
An
The
elite
things
receiver.
that really get under Mike Dussault's skin.
Semantics.
That's one.
Yeah.
Semantic.
XYZ, 1,
The
2, 3.
Football talk.
To be fair, the X thing does the
The X thing bugs me.
Some people think the only way you can be a number one receiver is you play X.
Yeah.
That I have an
It's
issue
like, so
with.
Rob Gronkowski was
Right.
not a number one receiver
Right.
for 10 years.
Yeah.
When he was the best tight end on the planet because he didn't play X. Like, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I
digress.
mean, it's just, I think, speaking solely from like the Patriots number one, like what does that even really mean? That your best receiver is going to be a slot receiver on third and medium to third and long,
Which is
That's,
okay.
you know, which is fine, but
Cooper
that's what
Kupp
it is.
is a slot receiver who almost won MVP a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Won MVP at
it's
the Super Bowl.
it's not necessarily like you can't have a number one receiver who's a slot receiver.
But you just want one that's going to play more than
need a number one caliber
He's got to play
receiver.
every
Right.
down. Like Cooper Kupp
And-
plays every down. I don't
well,
know if
and, you
Demario
know-
Douglas is going to play every down.
No, I don't think so either.
He's going to be.
But I think
'Cause
this
we're gonna wanna run the
emphasizes
ball and
the
block.
point that we just don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know who's going to emerge as their best receiver, however you want to call that, number one, or you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think
we
it's-
just don't know.
They have the ability to maybe have some good role players within the roles that they're going to ask them to play. They don't have anybody that can just do everything well, right? Like they don't have that number one Jamar Chase, play him inside, play him outside, all three levels of the defense.
Yeah.
But when you look at their receiving room, they each have one thing that they can kind of hang their hat on
Well,
that they're really good at.
And that's fine. You know, like if you truly do spread out the offense so that the defense has to cover the whole field, that's great. Now you need a quarterback who can recognize what's going on out there and make those decisions to be able to take advantage of that, because it's not going to look the same on every play. And when you don't have that one guy that attracts attention from a defense, they can spread out their defense a little bit more evenly. And again, it goes back to the quarterback to be able to recognize what's going on and distribute the ball. That hasn't been Jacoby Brissett's MO. You know,
No, I would say too, just to piggyback on like what Evan said, like Cincinnati's familiar with what Alex Van Pelt probably wants to do too. Like they probably have a pretty good sense of it's going to be a wide zone. They're going to be bootlegs. There's going to be, I mean, they've said it in the press. There's going to be screens. And I mean, if I was a defensive coordinator listening to what the Patriots have kind of said, like that's what I would be concerned with. I mean, Paul's had a great point of you don't really need to blitz them. I mean, the Bengals aren't really a big blitzing team anyway. I mean, they want to win with their front four and those two big edge guys. So, you know, I don't think you overthink it too much. I think you just try to make the Patriots beat you deep and watch the wide zone. And, you know, I mean, that's like, remember whenever the Patriots would play Denver, you know, it was always the whole week talking about it's the wide zone. Like, you know, we need to know how to, you know, move horizontally with the blockers and, you know, maintain our gap integrity, those kind of talking points. I think those will be, you know, key for Cincinnati. So I think it goes both ways. They're going to know kind of what to expect.
And the
too.
Bengals, you know, again, we can only go by last year because we don't have anything, you know, currently, but they were a horrific run defense last year. They were, you know, at the bottom of the league, both in yards allowed on the ground and yards average per carry. So they brought in Sheldon Rankins. I don't know if he's good enough, you know, to just like sort of, is he the Devon Godchaux? He's like kind of
but he's more
an
of
early
a,
down player that can
Right.
stop the run. I don't know.
Not really.
You know, but that was an issue for them last year, and that's a good defense. You know, Evan talks up Anarumo a lot, and with good reason. He's a really well-respected
Nailed it.
defensive
Off the top.
coordinator, and but you know, at the same time, they had some glaring issues a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've fixed those. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Tackling.
Especially in the second.
when you do the pregame show,
Yeah.
are you going to have Mike Petraglia? As
No,
your
we're going to
guest?
have Jeff Hobson.
Oh, Jeff Hobson.
Yes.
Didn't
Okay.
get Trags on.
We
That's
did
my
not.
guy.
Okay.
We
Jeff
did not.
Hobson. He's been around a while.
Jeff Hobson is
Yeah.
I like to call these people the Paul of the Bengals.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like, good in a good
That's
way.
high praise.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, Big Lou's going to be a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. And when you look at the Drake May of it all, throwing him out there to a defensive coordinator who, a lot of people tab as like a master of disguise, like he never shows you the same picture twice, type of coordinator. He's trending in that direction towards head coach status in the league. I would say maybe even as soon as next cycle. So he's really, really good. But they're very like sound though. They're not necessarily this. You watch them on film. It's not super exotic. Like I'm not watching this like crazy amoeba defense or something like that. But they're very, very sound in what they do, and he's very good at changing the picture pre and post snap on the quarterback.
That'll be next week. The amoeba defense will be.
Next week they'll be in. Yeah, we'll talk about that next.
What are we looking at for the availability of Hunter Henry?
Seems
I would
okay. I mean,
assume
we'll
he
find
should
out
be good to
tomorrow
go.
with the injury report, but he's been back at practice, and I mean, as far as because you guys have been watching a little bit longer, right? Like they seem like you were out there a while yesterday.
Yeah, they had us
made you
coming and
leave.
going.
They
and
made
that
you
whole
leave.
thing,
You come back.
Jeremy Springer didn't want us to see, the punt unit or whatever, because we're all going to tweet out, who's in the protection or something. But yeah, we were out there through period 5 yesterday, which is like right up to team drills. So right through individuals and all that.
Still
stuff.
kind of doing the same ramp up like they did during training camp with all those.
A lot of
individual
conditioning
drills,
early
running.
on yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a reminder to everybody that we're back to our in-season schedule, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at noon. So you're going to have 3 days going forward of Patriots Unfiltered every week. And on Thursday, we will be doing our picks.
Oh.
So not just for the Patriots, but we pick the whole league, both straight up and against the spread.
See
and
if I can continue my dominance.
we're pretty damn good at it. So
Your dominance?
just saying, overall, I think we've got a pretty good record.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Alex did pretty good last year, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
She fell off.
yeah, she had an off year.
she's gonna come storming in here.
Patriot,
I can
Patriot,
show you the final stats if you want them.
Patriots
Sure, I have
announced
them
their
somewhere.
captains yesterday.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah.
No.
Had a heart attack there for a second.
Mike looked at me like he saw a ghost.
Yeah.
When and I know that all the listeners now, because our listeners they're
Sure.
well informed.
Savvy.
When Jerod Mayo initially announced the captains, he left out Jacoby Brissett, and then immediately corrected it when he was
Yeah.
asked about Brissett. But when it happened, Mike had already sort of gotten something together about the captains, and his face was white, like, oh no.
As like Jerod took the podium, I saw they posted my thing, and they, and I was like, very careful, obviously, but he didn't say that. I'm like, oh my god! Like I'm looking at Paul, and Paul's like, what? I'm like,
I had no idea what you were talking about because
So-
I didn't know who the captains were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in your club.
No.
I don't get to
Need-
find
need
out
to
these
know.
things.
Need to know only, Paul.
When it happened, I thought about being a good company man and being like Jacoby,
Right.
or something like
Starting
that.
quarterback.
Yeah, but I just decided to.
Well, I was
You know what
watching.
the funny thing is? I didn't think anything of it. Like I didn't know, and I didn't think anything of it.
Well,
First year
I
guy,
know.
didn't
I
know.
credit Bedard for instantly going right to
Well,
it.
I was watching on my computer, and I said 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4. It's missing
Oh
somebody.
god.
Yeah.
Just the story, but
Starting
But it is
quarterback.
Jacoby Brissett,
yep.
David Andrews,
David
David
Andrews,
Jabril
Dietrich Wise,
Peppers,
Juwan
Bentley, Joe Cardona.
Cardona,
and Joe Cardona.
Fred Kirsch. Oh no, you were the only one that didn't make it.
And-
Sorry.
No surprises there, I don't think. Maybe
Joe Cardona
Wise
was a little
might be
surprising.
surprise.
Who?
I thought Joe Cardona was a little
Cardona?
surprising.
I thought
was-
Cardona was a little surprising.
Well, do they need to have a special teams captain? Is that like a requirement?
If they do, I would have thought it would have been Brendan Schooler.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
right.
Well, Cardona's the longest tenured player on the team,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, well, he's a long snapper.
I know, but he's been on the team a long time.
And I was a little surprised that Hunter Henry wasn't.
Was not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because he was a captain last year.
Yeah.
correct.
I think there's fewer this year though. Is that? they
I didn't
it?
confirm
Yeah.
that, but I was thinking about it because Cardona took Slater's spot, so that one was 1-for-1, and I don't remember.
No, Peppers is new.
Yeah, I don't remember how that. If there were
Jacoby
6,
Brissett
I
is
want to
new.
say there might have been 7
Mac
last year.
Mac for Jacoby.
Right. Everyone else kind of had it that was in versus out, had sort of an even.
Yeah.
So I guess Jabril Peppers maybe in for Hunter Henry was
Yeah.
how it
Well,
worked
that's
out.
obvious.
Yeah.
Oh, that. Did you hear that?
That's
I'll
an
look,
That's
easy-
obvious.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. I
That was fine.
right now, and I said this during training camp, Peppers might be our best defensive player.
I think there's a strong argument for that.
Yeah.
I sort of wrote something about that in the notebook that I posted this morning. Yeah, I just feel like he's trending to that, and this is not. I don't mean this to be disrespectful to Peppers, but Barmore's gone, Judon's gone.
Right.
And I think Peppers is the logical.
Yeah.
Next
But I
guy.
think, you're absolutely right what you're saying. I think if Barmore was here, you'd,
make
him,
an argument.
Right. But I think Pepper's game has risen a little bit toward, last year, and hopefully it continues to rise. But I think
Here's where Evan and I will take the next half hour off.
he came on last year. So, I think the future's bright for him on this team.
I just want to see turnovers. I want to see takeaways from him. I want to see
Yeah.
him really involved in those. We didn't see enough of them last year, just as a whole on the defense. And we were talking a little bit on our preview show. Evan was, mentioning in the late 19s or teens how they kind of relied on secondary a little bit more than they had the elite pass rushers. And I think you really saw a big drop off last year. Maybe one of the biggest reasons that the win total took such a dramatic dip was just those dried up too. Your turnovers spiked on the offensive side of the ball. So I just think for a team like this, it's really important this year. Get those takeaways. Get Christian Gonzalez. Not a lot of hands-on balls this summer. Want to see more of that. Want to see him be able to get some takeaways. Jonathan Jones. That's such a key for this defense. It seems like they're going to be aggressive, and if they're able to get those takeaways in the secondary, I think it'll just be a huge boost, and hopefully Peppers can lead the way.
Yeah, not as many of Paul's pick threes.
Yeah.
There were a few, but
They didn't have any turnovers. Mike is right.
2022, that was all it was.
Right, and that's
was
where you're
short fields
yeah.
and good field position,
Right.
and that's why you get to 8 wins instead of 4 in a lot of ways. But this safety tandem for the Patriots is like the one thing that I feel like that you can say
Strength of the team.
this is a really, really good duo that they have. Maybe the best duo in the league if both those guys play to their potential this season. And both players can make splash plays on the ball. Both players can play at all 3 levels of the defense. It's an exciting tandem with Duggar and Peppers. And I just wonder, you don't have Judon, you don't have Barmore. Maybe the way to get after the quarterback is we can get by with only 5 guys back here. Like we have Christian Gonzalez, we have these 2 safeties that we like a whole lot. Jonathan Jones is like Mr. Steady on the back end too, and maybe they can bring 6 guys sometimes to get after quarterbacks that way.
It's risky.
Well, they did it in 18 and 19 when Gilmore was
Yeah.
winning Defensive Player of the Year, and he was like at his peak. And I'm not trying to say Christian Gonzalez needs to be that good and in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, but if he looks like he did the first month of last season, and you can put him on an island against other teams' top receivers, and you can come after the quarterback.
I think my big question right now is like, who is your best nickel and dime players? And I know they can be cornerback, can be safety, but it's after the top 4 with Jones, Gonzalez, Duggar, Peppers. Who's the next best 2 guys, and what of course they can rotate and they can put it could be Marcus Jones, it could be Jalen Hawkins, but who are the
2.
best? Who's the best 5th and 6th guy in the secondary?
I think it's those 2, just depending
I lost
on
my mic.
if you want to be 3 safety or you want to be like traditional nickel. Or
is there anybody
whatever.
else who is even in that mix right now? I think it just speaks to their depth.
I think Marco Wilson might be, but I agree with Evan. I think the 2 guys are the ones you mentioned. And if it's not them, it could be some issues because you need some depth.
Yeah.
And this is back to the argument that you and I made heading into training camp, Mike, about corner. I think safety is pretty deep. I feel pretty good about those 3 guys. But corner, I don't feel as good about the top 3, and I don't think there is really a 4th, as Mayo said, that has established any consistency.
There's not really even that depth up front
No,
either.
no.
Like,
well, and that's the other thing is I think the front 7 was the strength.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would say the back end is the strength because you lose Barmore and Judon.
Yeah.
That chips away.
It's so funny how the game has changed because I remember when I was young, you'd be talking about teams' linebackers first. Who do they have at linebacker?
Now no one plays linebackers. It's like 2
I know.
linebackers on
right.
the field.
It's so funny how it's just
like
changed.
in basketball, like how there's no mid-range game anymore.
Yeah.
Linebackers are the mid-range jumper of the NFL. Like it's all about the back end and the front end, the layups and threes. Like that's all they're worried about now. And I just look at the Patriots, and to Mike's point, their dime is probably a 3 safety dime. with Jalen Hawkins. And going back to that 18 season, I just remember with those three guys back there that they, one would play the up top in the post safety role, and then one would be on the tight end, one would be kind of roaming, and that's what you sort of get with that 3 safety package. Hawkins is Deron Harmon. Like, he can literally just play the deep middle and just not give up a bomb, over his head, and that's all that they need from him.
That's the big difference. I mean, you just named it. I mean, it's Deron Harmon and Jason McCourty, who were 2 established, proven NFL players as kind of your nickel and dime guys, and now they don't really have that depth. I was also going to say, like, the Bengals are kind of a good example with what they've done with Wilson and Pratt. Like, those, that's kind of, those 2 guys just kind of play the whole time. It's
and that's
a little
all,
bit rare.
like a lot of teams, they have 2 guys. Now, you could say, well, I like Bentley and Tavai better than someone else, or, Wilson and Pratt better than, Bentley and Tavai. Teams have good linebackers, but they don't have a lot of them. To Fred's point, you used to be able to, like, rattle off, like, a 3-4 defense, like, oh, they have those 4 linebackers, or, whatever.
Teddy Johnson, Pfeiffer,
teams don't play like that
is, like, right down the list,
No.
It's one of it doesn't get as much attention as, like, the fullback going away and things like that, like the way people play nowadays, but linebackers are not generally the lifeblood of a defense.
I mean, are we
anymore.
getting, except for cornerback, are we getting to the point or trending toward positionless defensive players?
Well, I would say that the Patriots hybrids are kind of positionless. Like Duggar, Peppers, like those guys play linebacker a lot of the time. Like, they literally are playing linebacker at the second level of the defense. But, the Patriots, like, on passing downs, 3rd and 8, like, they run their 5-0 package. So they have 5 rushers across the line of scrimmage and then 6 guys in the back end. And there's just nobody in the second level. Like, they just, they don't really even cover the second level in that type of way anymore. So it's a totally different way to structure defense. And they were, to Belichick's credit, he was kind of at the forefront of that. Like, let's get the 250-pound linebacker off the field on 3rd down, and let's replace him with a 220-pound safety, who that if they do surprise us and run a draw or something like that, he can still make a play.
Be competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, no, I've said it before that everything in the league now favors the offense in terms of the rules and all that, but that doesn't mean the defenses aren't getting better. You may not see the elite defenses that you saw in the past, but for an average to just middling quarterback, these defenses are tough
I
to
would
play
say last
against.
year was a little bit of a resurgence
It
for defense
was.
in general.
Yeah.
There's not anything that's
it's not a trend
uniform
yet. Yeah.
overall, but I thought there was a little pushback on defense last year.
But
They're
I think
figuring it out defensively.
we don't see it as lay people, but these defenses are sophisticated. They are hard to read for a quarterback, and that's why there's not a lot of good quarterbacks in the world that can play in the NFL. And it's because these defenses are really tough to figure out.
The defenses are back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure they're all the way back yet, but they're trending back. And the 2 biggest things is they figured out RPOs at the NFL level. Like, the RPO, like yards per play on RPOs, is on a downward trend. Like, the league is like, all right, like, we get it. Like, we're going to play the pass with man coverage. We're going to stop the run with 6 guys in the box. We're good, right? Like, it's not as much of a advantage. Like, Philly last year, their offense is, like, built on RPOs, and they were nowhere near as good as they were the year before. Defenses are catching up. The other thing, just, schematic minutia, a lot of more simulated or creeper pressure, where you only bring 4 guys, but you don't know which 4 guys are coming in the pass rush. So they'll put, 5, 6 guys up along the line of scrimmage maybe, and then 2 will drop out and 4 will come, but it's a different 4 every single time.
The Steelers, have been doing that for years, really.
Yeah, so that's just a way to kind of keep the numbers in the secondary the same, but still get pressure and disguise pressure and blitz and things like that. So those things have kind of evened the playing field a little bit.
Again, that's a conversation next week we'll be having.
Yeah, he's probably the best at it. Mike McDonald, other than Bill. Bill was really very good at all this stuff too. And the Patriots run all sorts of, sims, creepers, all that kind of stuff.
All right, 855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket Hotline. Web radio at Patriots.com is the email address. Lots of emails coming in. But I want to also talk about some of the other games. Are you going to be watching Thursday night?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
AFC.
good
It's
one.
a good matchup.
Two great
Kansas
teams.
City,
Probably the two
Baltimore?
best teams in the AFC.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe in the league.
Yeah,
Friggin'
you can
Derrick
make the
Henry on
argument.
the
I mean,
Ravens.
I was just gonna say.
Not that anybody cares, but they were 1-2 in my preseason
Oh,
power
yeah.
rankings.
I mean, he could be the difference for Baltimore. You know?
Oh.
Take a little bit of the burden off of Jackson in the run game and just pound the ball with him.
Well, when they had, Mark Ingram, like 2019 when they beat
Ingram.
Ingram, sorry.
Yeah.
Get my Ingram something mixed up. But that was when they were kind of, I felt like, at their best with that power, having that power complement to Lamar's speed and just ability. So, yeah, it's worrisome, I would say, having that guy with that team.
We'll see.
But
Yeah, I'm not as sold on that. I think he's a little bit close to done, and I don't think that style is necessarily conducive to him. But we'll see.
I agree. My one worry with him would be like you're going to run Derrick Henry out of the gun, because if he doesn't have a full head of steam coming at the line of scrimmage, it's a different cat. Like he's not a spread back. Like he is a put the quarterback under center, hand it off, turn around, hand it off, and let him go to work. So there's other ways that maybe they do it to kind of get around that. But I don't really love Derrick Henry starting from a standstill and then having to like make quick moves and things like that.
My thing, Fred, this will stun you.
Yes.
I think if Baltimore is going to get over the hump and take the next step, they need to figure out a way to be more productive in the passing game. And I don't think that this on paper seems to be an indication that they want to do that.
Yeah.
I think they want to just continue to pound the football. Like Mike said, maybe not have Lamar have to run in as often because they have a guy that maybe they can rely on, which is great. But I think at some point you fall behind in a big game and you don't really have the tools to get back in it. It's obviously
Especially with Taylor Swift drawing up plays for the Chiefs.
it's obviously a high-powered, a high-class problem, but it's similar to like what we used to say about the Mac Jones Patriots. They can't fall behind. Now, they don't fall behind, as often as the Mac Jones Patriots did, but you saw what happened when they played Kansas City, and I don't think the Chiefs were great last year.
Yeah.
And I know that's silly to say of a Super Bowl champion, a back-to-back Super Bowl champion at that. But I think they were there to be had, and Baltimore, I think, was better. They just didn't play better that day, and they fall behind. I think Lamar Jackson is terrific, but he still hasn't refined himself enough, in my view, as that pure NFL passer to be able to come from behind and do that in a big spot like that.
They've also had trouble with receivers. Like Zay Flowers is probably the best one that they've gotten in there so far.
Well,
but
he single-handedly almost lost that game.
it was also why they were in it.
Right? No, he does both. He's
He's a rookie.
It's a big play guy for both teams.
Yeah, right.
Rashad Bateman, kind of been a bust of a first-round pick.
Sure.
Nelson Aguilar is their other receiver right now. Tez Walker they drafted, from North Carolina, one of Drake May's guys. But other than Mark Andrews, they really haven't had a ton of wide receiver
But they
talent.
had enough last year, and I just think that they fell short because they don't I don't think they're sophisticated enough in what they want to do. I think they're still reliant, and to me, the Henry move signals that that's what they want to keep doing, because Henry's a high-volume guy. If you want to get the best production out of him, you got to give him the ball a lot. He's going to wear you down, and eventually he's going to break one. That's sort of Derrick Henry's MO.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hoped that Todd Monken was going to make this more of like a pro-style passing game.
Remember they talked about hurry up and
just doing
using tempo a lot.
Doing
just
more
don't think it ever happened.
progression reads and like actual pro-style football. Whereas before with Lamar, with the guy who's banking
Greg
on
Roman.
Greg Roman, thank you. It was like a college offense.
I got an attaboy from Evan.
That was a read option, spread college style offense. So Todd Monken was supposed to come in and
I
take
agree.
it to that next level for Lamar. I mean, he won MVP of the league.
No,
So
that's
we're talking about it like
that's it. They're really, really good.
Yeah.
Like they're so good that they can play.
They're
the
a
style.
contender.
I would worry like in a big. And it might only be once.
Yeah.
Like they could go, 13-4, easily. They're that good.
Yeah.
And it might not really come up in the regular season, but at some point, I feel like you need to find a different way to win. It's not like, not all teams can be like the Celtics and just roll every round and never have to, find a different way. It's a hard thing to do in the NFL.
Friday night,
Can't
is
believe it's
Friday.
the
night
Packers
game.
and the Eagles again in Brazil.
It's actually a great game too.
Yeah.
It's a good matchup. I don't know if I'll see this one.
What station or streaming service is that on?
No clue.
Friday night.
I'll
Check.
look it up.
Do we know?
I'm
No,
looking
Is
it
that
up.
an NBC game or is that an Amazon game?
It's on the
It's a-
Peacock.
It's a streaming.
It's a
I
streaming.
think
It's on the Peacock.
Peacock
on the Peacock.
The Peacock.
On the you know.
Okay.
on the stream. So I don't know if I'll be watching it.
Good matchup in
Yeah, I
Sao
actually-
Paulo.
Oh.
I got
Yeah.
opening night for Fenwick that night anyway. So
How'd you feel about some of the players saying they're not going to leave their hotel rooms? That
Darius
seemed-
Slay's
Yeah.
interview was hilarious.
Yeah.
They were told not to leave their hotels.
Yeah.
He didn't say I'm not leaving my hotel.
Yeah.
He said we were told not to leave our hotel. I'm out. Fred, we go to Brazil. Paul out.
Well, was he the same guy when it was first announced that there was this thing about wearing certain colors down there?
Definitely, like walking with your phone is a big no-no because they
Yeah.
just run by and grab it. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's I vaguely remember something about the colors.
I didn't know
don't
if it was Darius Slay that came out and said,
They said something about the Packers and the Eagles weren't a lot like those were like the uniforms. They were gonna have to wear different uniforms or something.
I don't know.
But I think that turned out to be
yeah, it did.
urban legend.
Right.
I'm looking
But-
forward to Jordan Love
yeah,
because you've made this point before. They handed them this giant contract really off of like one season
yeah.
of production, and I think he's great.
It's the Packer way, though, Ev.
I think he's
Like,
great.
you
Like,
just
don't
let
get
him-
me wrong.
You just let him
but
sit for 12 years, and then he's great.
Right.
I
both
haven't
these
been,
quarterbacks though, like, kind of need
yeah.
to.
Just let him sit
Yeah.
behind a future Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
and he'll be great.
Yeah.
I haven't really been following. I did see though. It seemed like maybe Watson might have been banged up again, or they're talking about him. But I still go back to that training camp from a couple years ago where he was just such a good piece of that puzzle, and him getting banged up and being inconsistent. And
Now, Mike, did he play the X?
I think it was 1, 2, 3 XYZ.
Good for
Okay.
you.
They also have.
He's an X.
They really like.
He's a number one X.
They
If
really
you could
like
say-
Wicks
Yeah.
in Green Bay.
Dante.
So Dobbs, your boy Reed.
Dobbs,
Yeah, I
Reed,
liked Reed last
Watson,
year.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Wicks.
So
They
sick.
got
Four
pieces.
good receivers.
And they got the 2 young tight ends too. They
Yep.
got a lot of weapons.
Year 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, 855-PATS-500. Let's get to our listeners, see what's on people's mind. We'll start with Tim in Pensacola. What's up, Tim?
Hey, Fred, how's it going?
Good.
Really quick really quick setup, and then a question I'll take off the air. So I'm actually excited about Alex Van Pelt. I know he probably wasn't even the Patriots' first choice, but he has a history of working with quarterbacks. I think he knows what you need to play quarterback, and I'm sure he'll be able to wing May in there. My question is more about long-term, and I'd love to hear each of your thoughts on it. So Alex Van Pelt, he believes strongly in running the football. I think in times where he was play callers in the past, his teams ran the ball the most. I think fewer passes. And the question is, if Drake May keeps progressing and the fact that this team seems hell-bent on eventually getting a number one receiver, which I'm sure will eventually land on, long-term, do you think that if Drake May develops into an elite quarterback and we have a superstar weapon out there on the outside, and Van Pelt, do you think he'll just want to keep pounding the rock? And do you think that will cause tension and maybe for them to look to a coordinator that's more leaning towards the passing game? Or do you think that Van Pelt, like he said, would just adapt and become more pass
I get it.
oriented and run
Yep.
oriented?
Yep. I got it. Thanks for the call. Listen, if Drake May has the, indication that he's trending toward becoming an elite quarterback, and whoever the OC is doesn't adapt to the quarterback, then see you later.
Yeah.
What are we talking about
Well,
here?
we were just talking about it with Lamar, and
Yeah.
it feels similar to me with Alex Van Pelt that there is a world where Drake May outgrows Alex Van Pelt. And, like, right now, I think Alex Van Pelt is a good guy for the job because of what the caller said. He's got experience with quarterbacks, and he can fundamentally build Drake May up to a good spot. At some point, you're going to want the khaki pant guy, right? You're going to want Ben Johnson.
Tight khaki
You're
pants.
going to want, the guy in Houston. I'm blanking on names today. You're going to want those types
Bobby
of
Slowick.
Yeah, Bobby Slowick. You're going to want these
Saving Evan's show.
these guys that are drawing it up in the lab and all that kind of stuff. Once you get to that version of Drake May, right now he kind of needs the veteran offensive coordinator to bring him along slowly and all that kind of stuff. Once we get to the point where the caller's at,
Well, I'm not
it's
ruling
gonna be
out
somebody
AVP
else.
not being able to adapt.
So let's play Tim's game though.
Yeah.
So this year, next year, let's just say that May is the quarterback all of 25, and by the end of 25, we got something here.
We got the guy.
So heading into 26, will Alex Van Pelt say we can't do it the way we have the last 2 years? We have to do it differently, or will he be intent on
I
running
think
his
part of
offense?
also Tim's scenario is you land the number one receiver. You land that elite guy.
But I'm even putting that secondary.
yeah.
I'm saying what we saw in the Philadelphia game was a departure from the quote-unquote base offense. It was much more shotgun. It wasn't that many plays, so I don't want to get too lost with it. But they talked to us afterwards. Ev, you were in the post game.
It was North
when
Carolina.
They were talking about North Carolina stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit different than what Alex Van Pelt has been installing. Will he be willing to do that, or will he insist on doing what he did to Deshaun Watson and, sort of having him under center and having him hand off to Nick Chubb, and that's why he's not in Cleveland anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm just asking. I'm asking Tim's question.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about him being too stubborn to do it. I just don't know if he's the play designer that's going to have the chops to design the passing game in a modern way, in the way that, Kansas City's passing game is designed, or something like that, where you're really going to get the maximum out of Drake May if he is an elite passer. But I'm coming around on Alex Van Pelt for today. I just don't know if he's going to be the guy in 3 years from now that's going to be.
Which is
taking
fine
it
if he does
forward.
it.
Hopefully it's something we have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right, but if he does his job now, and he is, let's just say that Evan's right, and he doesn't really have the creative mind to adapt, that's okay, as long as he does his job now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I am kind of coming around to he was a good pick to nurture a young quarterback. I reserve the right to change my mind on that around middle of October, end of October, if Jacoby Brissett's still playing.
Well, it's,
that would tell me that he is sort of wants to stick with what he's comfortable with.
this goes back to what we originally talked about. We have no idea what this offense is going to look like.
I'm not necessarily concerned about the offense as much as I am Drake May. And when Drake May is ready to play,
No, I know.
is there going to be pushback? No. He's not quite ready yet.
It's just a hard position, because if he develops Drake May into an elite quarterback, and then you're going to say, well, good job, but you're not going to get us over the next level, so you're out. A hard decision. I wonder about, they got a big staff. I wonder if someone like T.C. McCartney, who, young guy, was
not
out,
opposed to that.
like, maybe, there might be more
He could wear tight
percolating
pants.
instead
I was
of,
gonna say, how
his
tight are
pants.
his
Yeah,
pants?
He
he's
could wear
I'm
tight
just-
pants.
Are his
coach
pants
for Kyle
tight?
Shanahan.
That's the biggest question I have with this entire coaching staff on offense is their
The
play
pants?
designing
Oh.
ability. Sure, they're like that. They don't have a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, a Bobby Slowick, a Ben Johnson. Like, that's not who they hired, which is fine. But when you get into the games, now you're going to be going up against Big Lou and McDonald and Saleh and all these great defensive minds. Like, are they going to be able to outfox defensive coordinators schematically, or are they going to, this is what we do, we're going to go under center and we're going to hand it off 40 times, and that's just not going to win very many games, I don't think, for the way that they're constructed.
I don't feel like I know for sure what Alex Van Pelt is. I mean, this is, when has he really done this before? I mean,
he hasn't. That's why I'm just going off of what he keeps telling us.
And so you look at the evolutions of the Patriots offense over the years of, under Josh McDaniels, of the, the twists and turns that they make. I mean, I don't think you can stick in this league as an offensive coordinator if you're not willing to adapt to not only your personnel, but to the trends of the league and what's being effective. And, I think sometimes you overthink it a little bit and you're trying to be too smart, get too cute, try to, everybody's getting really small, we're going to get really big, and, now we're slow and we're not fast. So, it kind of backfires on you. But I don't know that they don't have a tight pants guy on the roster. Like, I don't know that T.C. McCartney isn't, we love this kid. This kid's a brilliant mind.
Oh, that's why I said
and,
I'm not opposed to that.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't think that, every time Alex Van Pelt has been running an offense, he's been kind of under somebody's thumb, right? Like, so are we so sure that it was always Alex Van Pelt who's the conservative one who's saying we have to do it this way? I don't know. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I just think this is the first time that he's had a chance.
That's a fair point.
And if he's developed Drake May a little bit, we've seen some progress already, then it's a positive step forward, So we'll see. I just would hope that everybody would be aware, though, that you have to evolve. You have to, think of different ways. You can't stay the same. I mean, the Patriots in 2004, you mentioned Corey Dillon. Brought in Corey Dillon. You got a burgeoning best quarterback of all time on the roster, and your crown piece was to bring in a running back to kind of support it.
And I think by that time where Drake May is the guy, I think he should be part of that process in developing the offensive
And what's his
system.
talents, and how can
he should be in the room when you're drawing up these plays. So he has a stake in it, and it's coming out of his head as much as it is the offensive coordinators.
I mean, I just thinking of Buffalo a little bit with, he obviously came up under Dable and things were successful, and then they went to Ken Dorsey, and it wasn't, and they got to get rid of him, so it's hard. It's really hard, especially it's almost harder in success because if he stinks, then the offensive coordinator stinks and you fire him. But if he's good, but he's not quite good, or the offense isn't quite, one of these elite operations that's, taking any defense out to the woodshed, then, it's just a harder decision to make. Like, good job developing him, Alex, but we're going to, move on and, change boats midstream, so to speak, to try to, get to that elite level. It's hard.
There's no data in him as a play caller either. Like that I kind of know conceptually how they're going to scheme and how they're going to run the offense based off of camp in the preseason, but we have no idea how he's going to call plays. And the big thing to me, we were talking about running the ball 40 times and stuff like that. Like, I don't want them running the ball on first and second down as much as I think they might, because I'm with you. I would much rather them throw to run, right? Like throw to get the lead and then run the ball late in the game.
High percentage passes, but you do that instead of running on first.
Yeah, and I think that and it happens all the time. There's a misconception that when you rack up those rushing attempts, well, that's how they win. They ran it down their throat, and that very rarely is how they won. Usually it's we got a 3-score lead, and we ran the ball 20 of the last 23 plays of the game, and we ended up with 40 carries. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, that's generally how those big attempt numbers get, they come to fruition. Would you say 32-13?
Yeah. And they
They
were up 3 scores. They were
My
up
guess is
17.
Jacoby Brissett must have played pretty well in that game.
He did.
And had an abnormally productive game, through the passing game.
Efficient.
And then they just pounded away and salted the game away in the second half.
They got a lead.
Whatever.
They got the lead too.
And I don't know what the parameters of the game. This is not
it's
one
exactly
of my.
What, no, it's exactly
it's not
what
one of
you
my
just said.
psychotic. I remember that game. This is what happened. Things. I don't have any recollection of the game at all.
But you just listed off exactly what
but
happened.
That would be my guess as to how it come up,
lead.
because you just.
Yeah.
It's so rare in this day and age to just. Well, we're just going to come out and we're going to have the Ghost of Steven Jackson game and just run the ball in the first 15 plays of the game, and we're going to win by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You don't do that in the NFL. You don't do what BC did to Florida State last night in the NFL very often.
There it is.
By the way, can we get a close-up of Deuce's socks?
Do you have like 9 pair of those?
I got 2
Seems
pairs.
like you wear different Patriots socks all
I
the
had to
time.
wear a little something,
Is that just
Game
for
week?
today, or is this a week-long thing you're going to
No, just days where there you go. Yeah, slow zoom on those Reeboks too.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
There you go.
I got 2 pairs down in the owners meeting, so I'm firing them up. We're here.
You
Week
got
one.
pairs of Patriots
They
socks
gave
at
you
the owners
socks?
meeting?
They were free. Yeah,
How'd
they
you
give
get
it to me.
that?
Do they
There's a
have
little-
every team?
They did, and they're like, "Which team do you want?" I'm like, "Well, I gotta get."
Yeah.
Pick the Patriots?
yeah, obviously.
Can't be here wearing the Chiefs.
No, that wouldn't go over
Red
well.
Sox.
Jeff in Virginia writes in, listened to every show this offseason and loved it. Really excited for the next 4 to 5 years. The entire offseason, we've been told how bad the Patriots O-line is. I listened to a ton of other podcasts / local reporters, and it seems that 20 to 25 teams are in the same or similar position regarding offensive line. This is probably a question for Evan, but how many teams do you think actually have great offensive lines? Let's define great as 4 players who are above average. It really seems that 70% of the league has a bad offensive line, especially at tackle, but would rather hear from Evan to fact check that sentiment.
Before Evan starts,
all of you.
can I just just the qualifier, because I'm actually curious to see what your answer to this is.
Yeah.
You need 4 guys that are above average?
No.
That's what he said, to have a great
To
offensive
have a
line?
great offensive line.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't think really there's going to be too many that qualify.
Yeah.
But I think there are teams that I would say have
Good.
great offensive lines.
Good. Yeah.
But I don't know if they have 4 above average players.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Kansas City has a great offensive line. I don't think they have 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean,
They have 3.
I just wouldn't look at it that way because to me it's one unit. Like it's 5 guys playing
Yeah.
together. So like no matter what your individual talent is on the offensive line, if you aren't seeing it through the same set of eyes, then you could be terrible with Hall of Famers everywhere in that particular position. So which teams have like the elite tier 1 offensive lines? Just like off the top of my head, Detroit, number
Yep,
1
I would
in the
agree.
league to me. Philadelphia, like right there
also agree.
with Detroit. Kansas City, right up there in that category. I would probably cut it off around there.
I was just going to say, in my mind, I'm done.
Yeah, in terms of tier 1, like the elite offensive lines, and I think Kansas City might be more like 1B. You know, Philly and Detroit to me.
Does every one of
tackle
those
questions.
teams
Yeah.
have a notable offensive line coach?
Well, Stoutland in Philly is like Dante Scarnecchia level.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. Detroit, I don't know. It's not like a notable offensive line
couldn't tell
coach,
you.
but Ben Johnson's obviously their coordinator, and he's very good. And they have Penny Sewell, who might be the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL. So yeah, you have talent and you have coaching with those two teams. Just fantastic groups, like across the board, really.
Yeah, I think that coaching is probably, if not the most important, really critical in getting a cohesive offensive line, because it really is a ballet that they're doing there. There has to be communication and coordination on that line.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Especially
right
with,
now.
again, going back to how sophisticated these defenses can. They give a lot of different looks to the quarterback, but they're also giving a lot of different looks to any individual offensive lineman.
Yeah. I'm concerned about it, too.
Yeah,
Like I am.
coaching is critical
Yep.
on the offensive line.
Yeah, it
I
goes
even-
back to the
yeah.
Van Pelt. Sorry to cut you off. It goes back to the Van Pelt thing for me, where I think Scott Peters is a really good technique coach. Like we hear him out there at practice, and he's breaking down like your hand was a centimeter off, like you were here, and we need you to be there. Like he understands that kind of stuff. But the big picture, like the concept, is like the bigger question with that. Like, are you all on the same page? Are
Right.
you is all 5 guys like flowing together and all that kind of stuff? As good as Dante was at the individual technique, he might have been even better at the
Yeah.
big picture.
I would say 2 years ago, maybe it was as much a problem as last year, but I really noticed it 2 years ago where you'd have guys just not covering anybody. That's not because they can't block. It's because the communication is terrible, and they're left on without anybody to block because whoever's doing it isn't making the right reads to start the play, and they're not all on the same page.
Yeah.
Most of these guys in the NFL, offensive linemen, can block. They wouldn't be in the NFL if they, just got manhandled on every play. But the failings of most offensive lines is just that they just don't play well together, and they're just not on the same page. And yeah, every once in a while you get beat. No, obviously, but when it happens week in and week out, you can look at a lack of communication and coaching as a main culprit.
Like even when Dante was here, before I even worked here, like one of the things that I just kind of came to believe was that the offensive line is going to take some time. Even when you have a Hall of Fame offensive line coach and some really good players along, that it always was going to take some time. I remember, God, there was like a game in 2012, 2013 around here where they just couldn't block anybody.
Jordan
maybe a
Devey?
Cardinals game.
It was 14. It was the
14.
Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
The game before it in Kansas City. Say the name again. Ev?
Jordan Devey.
Devy, yeah, the tuba
The most
player.
surprising week one starter.
That was
Yeah.
one of the worst performances by an offensive line in the Brady era that I can remember.
Right.
And was is Brady too old to avoid this pressure
Right.
anymore?
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of protection he's going to have. And as is normally the case,
And they straightened it out.
Brady figured it out.
Yeah.
That was
Good. Mike.
Googs, right? That wasn't Dante Scarnecchia that year.
Right.
No, it was not Dante.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think there was
Dave
one, the one I might have been.
Brian
Yeah.
Stork ended up being part
Didn't
of
they
that.
lose
offense.
they lose to the Cardinals, I think, in like 2012, like first
Yeah.
couple weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Gostowski missed a field goal in the last
Gostowski
play of the
missed a
game that
field
would have
goal.
won the game.
It just speaks to the nature of the line, though, where Dante, who's special, and this is the exception of the rule, but you are able to put together a functional offensive line with really good coaching, even if these guys aren't super talented. I mean, and like Joe Thuney and Shaq Mason are arguably still two of the best guards in the NFL right now. And,
Right.
you know, it was a third-round pick. And what was Mason?
Fourth, I think.
Fourth-round pick. So,
Didn't
you
even
know,
get invited to the combine.
That's where you get
know,
your guards, and they did a great job of identifying the talent out of the draft, and then they developed them because they were really good players. It's not like they blossomed elsewhere. They were really good players here, and they recognized that and paid them both, and then decided to let them go.
Tooney might be a Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
like a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Like he's got rings. He's going to be like
What are we
a
doing?
all
Why-
pro for
why-
a decade.
how did
I
this
was
happen?
talking with a person at the Patriots about, you know, the failings of the offensive line over the last few years, and I said it began with Joe Thuney, and this person agreed. They said they should have paid him.
How are
They
you
should've
not
paid
sick
him.
about it? Like, you drafted a potential Hall of Fame guard, and why? Why
I
is
go
he
back
not
and
here?
forth on it because I do think. I mean, I don't care. I would spread the money, like that's fine with me, but they do. You know, like the percentage of the cap can't go to one guy. So, like, I understood what they were doing. For me, I just look at like San Francisco right now, and suddenly figuring out how to get these mammoth contracts for Ayuk and Trent Williams done on the eve of the season. Oh,
Right.
it's really remarkable.
Yeah.
You know, Deshaun Watson, they convert money to a signing bonus and create $35 million of cap space in Cleveland. Like, to me, there are things that you might not want to do because sometimes it's hard to cough up the money at the time, but the cap isn't the reason why.
No, but
And I agree with you, Fred. If you
Yeah.
just said instead of franchising Tooney and just gave him a contract
prior to
extension,
that,
He'd be
right.
underpaid
much,
right now,
much like they
right?
did with Shaq Mason,
yeah,
they gave Shaq Mason a big time extension.
yep.
And then not only they let Tooney walk after he was franchised, then they deal Mason in the middle of that extension, which I didn't really understand. Like, you had two guys, like I just said, that you drafted, developed, and they hit right on the prime of their careers. You said, well, we don't need either one of these guys.
Yeah, let's also not forget about Ted Karras too, who was also
Yeah,
right in that
a
mix.
solid-
It was
a
even
solid player.
even more inexcusable because that was peanuts.
Right.
Yeah, it
The
was
other two,
over-
at least, were high-priced commodities.
Yeah.
They offered Ted Karras a contract, and then offered him a lower contract after the team offered him more money. The Bengals offered him more money to walk, and it just none
That's
of it.
not how you do negotiations.
Yeah, and none of it
Like,
made.
When does that ever work?
He's not Joe Thuney. Like,
No.
he's not on that level.
No.
But he's one of those interior offensive linemen, either at center or guard, where you put him in the starting lineup and you don't worry about that position.
Right.
I
for
mean,
us,
they
you know.
had a guy like Logan Mankins was great. He's Patriots Hall of Famer. Very similar. Guards his position, but he can play tackle if he has to.
Yeah.
You know, he was so versatile, Tooney.
I think
That
you
was
could,
the beginning of the end for the offensive
You
line.
could
in my-
write a
my
whole
mind.
essay about the decline of the Patriots dynasty just through the lens of guards, like between letting Tooney and Mason go and paying them.
Paul would have loved that.
The Joe Tooney drafting Cole Strange. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
stupid, but
Right
like
up with not having a
it's
succession
really
plan for Brady.
Yeah.
No, they've been chasing their tail.
symptomatic.
Yeah,
And
and,
I
then
just-
the coaching turnover too. Like, Carm Bricillo had them playing okay in 21, and he leaves with Josh to Vegas, and then that opens up a hole
Yeah.
there, and then it
If
just,
you're gonna lose Dante Scarnecchia and Tom Brady, your talent better be better
yeah.
along the line.
yeah, like I thought Carm Bricillo was a good offensive line coach for them,
Yeah.
and then he left to Vegas with Josh, and they replaced him with Matt Patricia, and then they draft a guard in the first
Well-
round and hand him to Matt Patricia to
Well, and
develop
Matt
him.
Patricia, you know, I don't want to defend Matt, but I'm going to. He didn't have the time. He had too much on his plate.
He also didn't know what he was doing.
He basically handed over the coaching of the offensive line over to David Andrews. You know, like it wasn't fair to anybody.
yeah.
That was a mess.
No, they didn't have enough coaches. They lost a lot of valuable coaches earlier than they had lost them in previous years. You know, like they were only around for a couple of years and coming into their own, and then those guys were
Yeah.
leaving, and they were really caught bare on the coaching staff.
Just to bring it back home. We've seen a lot of issues with the offensive line. It's just my hope is that, and I'm not going to judge them off a Sunday or next Sunday, but like we need to start to see things settle down a little bit, at least with some of these pieces, you know.
Well,
and
that's the concern now. Is if So and Lowe are probably not going to play.
Yeah.
Would we say?
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow.
You know, I know that Jerod told us, you know, which we have to look forward to Fridays now. 'Cause
Yeah.
I guess we're going to find out who's playing and who's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with it, you know, within reason. But I think those two guys are probably going to be hard-pressed to play. So now, just to, like, come full circle, we're talking about how great it was when you had Joe Tooney and Shaq Mason. So Evan's telling you what was at practice yesterday. And it was like a rotation between Nick Leverett and Michael Jordan. One of those guys is on the practice squad, right?
Yep.
Michael Jordan.
Jordan's on the practice squad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's like, and I'm not saying, like, Liz, he's a 5-year guy. It's not like he's some kid undrafted
No,
who's just
but
making his way in the league. But this is where you are on opening day.
I know.
You're probably going to have a practice squad elevation play
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah, and you have Chooks at left tackle, which is can't even get lined up right in a preseason game. So like
Right.
Well,
that's where we're at
That's a
with
whole
that.
different.
And I agree
Yeah.
with your point, Fred, that you made at the beginning of this offensive line stuff, that generally the worst offensive lines, it's not about like I'm lining up against you and I just can't get in your way
Right.
enough
I have no
to give the
business
quarterback
being here.
even time.
Right.
They're
It's
all
the
on different
communication
pages.
problems. It's not reading it the right way. You know, like Evan says, you see it through the same set of eyes. David Andrews has a lot in his plate. I do think it'll be better when he's in there than it was when Nick Leverett was in there, because I think Andrews has much more experience, you know, doing these sorts of things. But I do worry about the breakdowns, like the mental breakdowns that we've seen throughout the summer. And I'm sorry, part of that is coaching.
Yeah.
I just thought of another part of my through the guard lens is the Michael Onwenu, and then you finally get a guard, but because you're so strapped in everywhere else that you have to move him out to tackle. Like, you know, I don't know. It's
all pro.
It's all
I figured by now they'd have it figured out, but I
Yeah,
was
that
wrong.
that preseason finale, just to go back to the lining up, that was one of the worst coached offensive line performances I think I've ever seen. Like, guys weren't even lining up correctly.
It's not
You know, they
inspiring.
got
It was almost like they were being stubborn.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care what you're going to call. I'm okay.
And they both
I'm
sounded
gonna
that
do
way.
it this way.
I thought Okorafor and Onwenu. I think
right.
Onwenu only got called for one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought they both sounded defiant when they talked
right.
about it.
I'm
Yeah.
right. You know.
Yeah,
Oh.
and they have like three guys run into each other, and the starting quarterback gets hurt on the first series. He's already hurt. It's just all of that could have been avoided.
And you can make an argument for coaching on that play too. You know, I think Evan talked about this last week. Just like the design of the play.
Yeah.
What you're asking guys to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Russell in Arkansas, would you say that running back is still an area of need? If so, what route would you go? Sign a free agent or seek out a trade? I've read some of those clickbait reports that Damian Pierce could be on the trade block. Any interest there? Seems like Mixon has locked up the starting role, and the Texans staff basically said that Pierce is going to be a special teams guy.
I'm okay at running back. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson,
until
Gibson.
somebody gets hurt, and there will be injuries.
And you elevate Kevin Harris off the practice
Yeah.
squad. That's Damian Pierce.
And Terrell Jennings.
Yeah, I think Jermichael
Or-
Hasty
or-
had a decent summer.
Or Terrell Jennings.
Yeah, I'm okay with.
I don't mind if they like have if there's somebody on the street right now that they think fits what they want to do and they want to sign, that's fine. I don't have any interest in dealing even anything for a retread back. You know, Damian Pierce to me is not any different than what you have.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how you guys feel.
Yeah, well,
Usually,
where did Fred go? What
usually
happened?
someone says, "I got to go. I got to take
you
this
insult
call."
Fred?
Just gets up, makes an awkward face at me in the middle of a sentence, and just walks off the set.
Well, when
Oh,
nature calls, you got to go.
And I haven't even remembered the last time I've argued with Fred. So you guys can't blame this one on
It's
me.
the chairs, Paul.
Deuce,
It's not conducive
you
to
need to
arguing.
drive the plane.
You
I'm
can't-
getting nervous.
I can't-
All right, we're entering hour 2 here.
I can't
Patriots
argue. I
Unfiltered.
can't argue anymore. It's just not.
It's
I know.
because we're
not what I wanna
also
do.
relaxed in these chairs.
I know you can't.
Yeah,
you
you-
need a table to bang
I
on.
look extra fat sitting in this chair. It really throws me off mentally.
No, everybody
Well, I
says
think
you
I
look
think
like
we've
you
worked
lost
it though,
weight.
Paul. That we're gonna get some tables here maybe for Thursday's show. So we're inching.
I'm
our way.
efforting that, Mike. I appreciate you working on my behalf.
We just jump right into Cincy though. It felt like because this week, it's usually we save like there's no talk about.
No,
the
but we don't have any
opponent.
talk about the previous game.
Yeah.
Like we usually. Tuesday's usually therapy Tuesday. You know.
Or
That's what it was all last year.
Yeah.
Like right out of the gate, everybody was like, "Oh, they played well against the Eagles," and I was like, "Nope, they really kind of didn't." Yeah, it was.
I remember you got everybody mad at you.
Yeah, I got everybody mad at me.
it's just fun standing on the precipice because I know Jacoby Brissett said something like last week where like, yeah, we're just excited to go on this journey, and you realize that like it is a journey, it's a trip, and it's like you have no idea all the twists and turns, the injuries, the close losses, the close wins, any of that stuff, until you go and experience it. Oh,
We'll make a quick trip to the phone lines. We'll get Sam in North Carolina.
Look at this.
Sam, you're next. Sam?
Hey,
Sam.
what's up,
Hey.
Didn't lose a call.
fellas? I'm excited for the season coming up. I'd be a lot more excited if Drake May was playing.
Me too.
But
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, but you can't have it all. You know, I understand the process, even though I don't agree with it because I don't understand the function of the line. How, like, we just drafted a right tackle, but you still gonna kick when you out the tackle, and I don't know about the coaching staff, you know. But like y'all guys just said, it's a journey. But I have a game. I want y'all to know if you take a blue chip player and you take a yellow chip player and you mix them together, you get a green chip player. Have a good day, guys.
I
Okay.
think that was a shot at somebody.
Yeah. Who was talking about those yellow chip? I think we had a caller that had this game that he wanted
Oh, I
us to
think it was,
play.
was it
and I got
Eldred?
totally
yeah, yeah,
confused
yeah,
in the
yeah.
middle
Is it
of it.
Biggie?
I think it was Eldred, right?
Is it Biggie?
I don't know what a yellow chip is. That doesn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's blue chip and red chips. That's it.
Yeah,
Those
there
are the
were,
only
a lot
chips.
of, there were a lot of color codes for the
no
various level of
Well,
player.
there's potato chip, poker chip,
Silicone
Blue chip
chips.
and
Yeah.
red chip.
Chocolate
chip and
chip.
I don't
Ernie.
know what a yellow.
You'd get that, right?
Chip and the
My
Douglas.
three sons.
Douglas.
My three sons.
I got you.
Curtis from St. Louis writes in, wanted to say thanks for keeping our off-season fun and full of great content. I'm always overly optimistic, so here's my hot take. May will start Week 5 against Miami. The Patriots will finish second in the division ahead of Buffalo and New York, and they will sneak into the wild card round. Then next year, we will continue to build around May in this offense and become a real Super Bowl contender in 2025.
Let's go.
Who was that email
I think
from?
that's really optimistic. It's,
Who is that from?
Curtis in St. Louis.
Good job, Curtis.
there you go.
That's bringing a lot of positivity
I
to the
don't think
table.
there's any chance that the Patriots finish ahead of Buffalo. Like maybe one
What
of
if
those
Josh
other
Allen
teams
gets hurt and
Aaron Rodgers gets hurt.
Yeah,
and
like the Jets will
Tua
always-
Tagovailoa gets hurt.
The Jets will always Jets. Like they'll find a way to blow
That's
it
what-
in New York. But like
Oh.
the Bills, no.
that's what I'm
I can't
interested.
see
Pete Schrager picked, but top seed in the AFC. Peter
Who?
Schrager on Good Morning Football this morning picked the Jets to be the top seed in the AFC.
You
I
can make an
credit the
argument
Bull-
that that's the
Oh, yeah.
most talented roster in the AFC. You
Yeah.
can make that argument.
Bill Belichick seems to think
He'll
so.
blow his
Listen,
Achilles on 4
last
plays
year-
into the season. Yeah.
That's
Last
the
year,
X factor. The guy's
Yeah,
111 years
What's
old.
it going to be?
Yeah,
What's it
Last
going to be?
year, with that mess at quarterback, they won 8 games, right?
I think it was 7, but yeah, your point's still taken.
Yeah. I mean, and that was a mess at quarterback.
It's a really good roster.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know how great the coach is, and I don't know how you can rely on a 40 whatever coming off of
41.
an Achilles.
Well, that's the big thing with the coach is that he's never really had rubber hit the road. Like we don't know what everybody's
I don't
just.
even know what's going
I,
on.
just,
I mean,
I opened the
distracted.
floodgates in more
mean,
ways than one.
I have to tinkle too, but I'm waiting for a break.
Yeah.
We don't know what Salah is.
Well, you know, in
in
your
a
shows,
big
Paul,
spot.
they take a break every 10 minutes, so you
That's
can
true.
do that. We don't do that.
I have a lot of bones to pick with Paul's shows these
Yeah.
days, but I'm going to keep it to myself.
Let's see. James Pettigrew, the most interesting Patriots fan of the world, writes in, question for the nerds. Now, who would that be?
I mean, I guess you guys can sit this one out again.
How much could Drake's mobility offset the O-line's vulnerability? If he's a legit threat to run, does the defense scheme differently, or is Drake more of a scrambler
I
than
like
a
the
legit
question.
runner and defenses will blitz anyway?
He's more of a scrambler than a legit runner, but I like that line of thought. Like,
Yep.
does that back off the rush because you can't be as aggressive going after a guy who can move?
Yeah, I tend to think so. It can work both ways because if he's moving into pressure, then he can create pressure. Like this is the old thing with Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson over the years would hold the ball forever and he'd run around and he'd do the Russ magic and everybody'd be like, oh, look at how great this is. And there are other people that would say, well, he's running into pressure, right? So it's like, is it harder? A lot of offensive linemen would say it's harder to block for the Russell Wilson.
Right. You
Right.
don't know where he is.
Right. Whereas Tom Brady was always in the same spot.
Yeah.
Now, his improvisational skill and his mobility should help him get out of some things. Get the little Houdini acts and things like that. So it goes both ways.
Well, I know from a morale thing, when you've got a team like 3rd and 10 and everything's covered and then that quarterback takes off and runs for the first down, it's a backbreaker. It does. It kills your defense.
It is. And I will say, I I feel pretty comfortable in saying that if Drake May played the whole year, he would be sacked more than Brissett will be if he plays the whole year.
Yep.
I mean, that's just kind of an age thing. But also, if you look at a lot of the mobile quarterbacks, they get sacked a lot because they're running around always looking to make a play, and sometimes they catch him behind the line of scrimmage. It just happens.
Yeah.
You know, I think Russell Wilson's a guy, to Evan's point, that falls into that.
Especially early on in players' careers at quarterback, because they don't realize how fast these defensive guys are. They can outrun them all in college.
So that was one.
Like with Williams, I'll be interested to see how many sacks he takes this year.
So we were watching. Yeah, he'll get sacked a lot, and Daniels will too.
I mean, he even got sacked a lot at USC.
Yeah.
But when we were, I think it was the first preseason game, the one that Joe Milton played well in the fourth quarter. He had a play in that game. I think it was one when he sort of started running backwards and he was running around and he looped around, and Brian Hoyer was with me and he goes, yeah, that one wouldn't have worked out as well if Jadeveon Clowney was playing, who was on the Panthers that night and one of the 30 guys that wasn't dressed.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, that wouldn't have worked out as nearly as well. In other words, to your point, Freddie, the defensive ends run, you know, as well as those quarterbacks.
They'll surprise
do.
you.
You know, the athletic ones. I'm not talking about every one of them, but the athletic guys will run you down.
Justin in New Hampshire says, I think I'm more excited about 3 shows a week than I'm watching Jacoby Brissett throw the ball.
Hey. Okay. All right.
This year, to
Fred's
me,
Foods here.
is so much about just like how does everybody else look? Like, I know none of us are that super excited about watching Jacoby Brissett, but some of their other younger players like are still going to play a lot, even if Drake May is on the bench. And
what do you think the level of blotting would be if the Patriots came out and like put 34 on the board?
Well, they better watch out.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if that happens,
they'll be
it's going to be but it's going to be like an indictment of all of us and everybody else that's
who's in position to block
Go ahead,
anybody. I'm like,
I hope it happens.
I'm not.
I wouldn't be blawed.
I would have a
He'll get
rebuttal.
mad.
No,
He'll get mad.
I'll have a rebuttal to that because I opened the show with
you
the Browns.
You showed the path.
The Browns
You showed the
have
path.
kind of owned this defense and this team. So if they scored 30, I would just say, well, he knows this. You know, Van Pelt really knows.
No, but there's a
Bengals
difference between like having, you know, like they could win the game and not necessarily have a great offensive day.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like they just came out and lit it up,
firing away.
like an offense that we didn't even see for 5 seconds at practice, right? Like I'm talking, like I'm just like
part for
all of a sudden
Ramondre.
they're the 07 Patriots.
My shirt might come off.
Yeah,
I might take my shirt off.
I'll take my shirt off.
In Cincinnati.
Be careful in that press box.
It's easy to drink. It's easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots, and need something to do before next week's kickoff. Well, it's this week's kickoff. Why not get your living room game ready by playing the Bob's Discount Furniture Dare to Compare Challenge? When you dare to compare Bob's Renegade motion sofa with the competition, you get customizable modular design, Bobopedic power reclining seats, charging ports, and plenty of storage for hundreds less than other brands. Now that's a winning play. So stop in and see how much you can save when you dare to compare with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
Before I get started, we have our servicemen and women outside. You know, they have a lacrosse game. Just went out there and kind of just offer my appreciation for their sacrifice. I know a lot of times it's easy to say thank you for your service, but there's a lot of sacrifice that those guys give up for the safety of our country, and you know it's noticeable when you go out there. So definitely wanted to make sure that was known. Just kind of, you know, to move forward, excited to get to this point in the season when now we're really game planning for a team. This is an exciting time for me personally, and I think for the players that are in that room. Before we get into, I'm sure there are questions about the quarterback and questions about Cincinnati, hopefully more questions about Cincinnati. Just wanted to wrap up one thing with our captain. So this morning, we had a vote, and I do think it's very important that captains are not selected by the coaches, but selected by their peers. And the captains for this year's team, which this year they'll have their C's. I do think it's important to have the C on the jerseys. That's one difference that I think is important. But Andrews, Bentley, Peppers, Joe Cardona, and Dietrich Wise, those are our captains for this year. And look, they embody everything that we preach about each and every day, not only on the football field, but also off the football field. And I'm very excited to have these guys, and I know they're excited as well to lead this football team.
Is wearing the C. Why is that important to you?
Yeah, I was a captain 7 out of 8 years, which, look, once again, whatever happens inside the building, that's always the most important thing. But I do think it's like a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor, and I think when guys do the right thing, they should be recognized for those things. And, it's something as small as just having a captain's patch. I think it's important for those guys.
Jerod, Jacoby not being voted a captain, do you think that?
Oh, sorry, Emberset. Sorry. The good catch. Hey, good catch. So just hit delete on those texts and on those tweets. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. That was going to be a fire, but hey, thank you. I definitely do appreciate that. All right, I'm good on my opening statement. You guys fire away.
Just a thought on opening up the season. How excited are you and the job ahead in Cincinnati?
I'm very excited. Once again, every day is a learning experience for me, and excited to go through this week and really prepare, with the guys that are going to be out there on the field. Look, Cincinnati, they offer many challenges offensively and defensively that we're going to have answers for, and I think the guys are ready to go. Today is a bonus day for us, so just like I spoke about last week, we really were still focused those last 2 days of practice on getting NEP better. What I will say is that's still the message going forward, while at the same time sprinkling in a few things here and there that Cincinnati offers. And what I would say is, look, they're a very versatile team. Obviously, they have a bunch of great players on that team, and we just got to be able to go out there and compete on each and every down.
Maybe just rewinding to last Thursday, you showed us the courtesy to come out as you said you would. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
We didn't have as much time for follow-up questions because you had meetings that day. But just how did you come to the decision?
Yeah, I mean, we had our process of, talking to the coaches, the coordinators, Elliot as well. That was part of the process. But what I would say is ultimately it was my decision to put who I think gives us the best chance to win football games. And hopefully you guys got it last week. We're 100% behind Jacoby. He can't think about what's in the rearview mirror. He has to be ready to drive this thing forward. And I made sure that he understood that he has the full support of not only his teammates, but also the organization for him to go out there and perform at the level that we know he can.
Coach, was there ever any consideration to starting Drake May week 1, or has the plan always been to try to ease him along?
No, we always, we kept saying, look, competition, and, that is something that I truly believe in. And it was a real competition. It honestly came down, to, a few days where that separation started to happen. Now, the things that kind of went into that, that pot as far as how we came out with this conclusion, I mean, there were many things that were weighted differently. And once again, I just feel like me personally as the head coach here that Jacoby gives us our best chance.
What do you think needs to change between now and Drake's first start, whenever that is, for you to feel like it's time to play?
For me, we talk about competition in training camp, but quite frankly, it's competition each and every week. And we'll see how it goes. But once again, I don't want Jacoby to feel like someone's nipping at his heels, and he'll get the majority of the reps while at the same time continuing to develop Drake in other ways. Now, a lot of you guys, I guess the next question will be, how do you do that? He will still participate, in some of the, the team drills for the upcoming team. But I also think, the show team reps are very important. They've always been important. And even when I was a rookie, I also was a top 10 pick. But even as a rookie, I was on those show teams. And I think that's another place where you can develop, as well as the other tools that we've talked about here over the summer.
How much of a misconception is it that he was brought in here, Jacoby, to be kind of a placeholder or a mentor or whatever, as opposed to what he brings to the team as a starting quarterback?
He is a mentor, and I would say, which is reflected in the captain's voting. Thanks again. I think he's a mentor to the entire offensive side of the ball. He's familiar with the offense, and at the same time, he knew he was in a competition and still remained steady, which is something you definitely appreciate from your quarterback position.
Through
About the health of the offensive line, not the health, but kind of the state of the offensive line. How is Jerry Lowe doing? We saw Nick Leverett out there late last week at guard as opposed to center.
Yeah, so coming out of training camp, we had a tough training camp, and there are definitely things that popped up. We'll see if those guys are ready to play, but right now we just have to move forward. And we talked about that next man up mentality. Like, we don't know if he'll be at the game or not. He may wake up tomorrow talking about Lowe feeling great. I mean, I just don't know. But going back to what we've done the entire training camp as far as moving people around, we were trying to find our best five while at the same time building depth through the guys that we have on the team. And so that's the difficult part of it. But as we continue through the week, and this is why I'm going to meet with you guys on Friday, right, Stacey, to talk a little bit more like who's ready, who's not ready. And I'll try to be as transparent as I can with you guys. I'm not a guy, I'm not going to get into, trying to be cryptic or anything like that. I'll just let you guys know the truth and try to be as transparent as possible.
Going back to the Drake, scout show team, taking some team reps.
Yep.
How about, I've heard, of quarterbacks running a meeting, is that possibly, have you talked to Alex or Ben or TC about letting Drake install the game plan the night before a game or something?
Yeah, so, we've done that. We use that tool. I think it's called the Feynman technique. I think that's what it's called. But I do believe, if you can teach it, you have a true understanding of the play of the game plan. When I first got into coaching, I was teaching my son cover 2, which I will say, as a proud father right now, he had 6 tackles, 2 for a loss this past weekend, and blocked a field goal without jumping. And I thought that was pretty cool. But what I will say is, look, he'll have certain projects and things like that that he'll be responsible for. In saying that, look, he'll still go through just a normal game week each and every week, and that's how it's going to be as of today.
When someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
Replacements were shipped with FedEx, and with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
And now, great moments in history.
So I love college football. He has no interest in it until February, but it's so much. This weekend especially is going to be great. Alabama, Tennessee, there's probably at least one future Patriot playing in that game. So that would probably be it.
Okay.
Because he's patting himself on the back so much, I'm going to just say this. The reason why I don't get into college football in the fall is because I have what's called a girlfriend. And 6 days a week, I have to
Shots fired.
football.
Shots
and
fired.
on Saturday, I spend it with Jess. So there you go.
Wow. I'm going to truly enjoy my Saturday this week, and I thought you said we weren't doing personal.
That's another great moment from
Yeah, so far the college game's been pretty good. Some good games.
I've watched a little.
Just for the record, Barth
Still a savage
still single.
takedown.
we have to give we have to give congratulations
Yes.
to Bill O'Brien
Billy O.
and the BC Eagles for beating the number 10 team in the
It might be
country.
the first time that I can recall that I've ever rooted for Boston College in anything.
Yeah, because you're a Northeastern fan.
But I like Billy O.
And you
and
went
I'm
to
and
BU.
I'm rooting for him. And in all seriousness, now, listen, Florida State is probably not very good, based on the start of their season. So I'm not over, but it just shows you how much a quality coach can change a team. They don't have any different level of talent, but how many penalties did BC have last night?
Right.
How many times they got caught with the wrong personnel on the field and that kind of stuff?
Right.
They had an idea of how to play football. Now, you're not going to run for almost 300 yards against every team. They dominated Florida State last night, but I just thought it was striking how much more organized they looked. And I think Hafley, his predecessor, was not bad. I think he did a pretty good job there.
NFL guy.
But I just think it's the difference between a guy like Billy O and some of the predecessors. I don't think they'll be great. I'm not trying to say I have any illusions, but that was an impressive performance for him last night.
I'm
Good start.
7-8 wins,
Yeah.
not out of the question, right?
Good for the area. Wins. He's not wrong about BC is a great school, academically a great school.
Yeah.
It's right outside of Boston. Yeah, he keeps saying why can't
BC be a football school?
Yeah, and it's
Well, you got to lower your standards a little bit, right?
It's not crazy.
You got to start recruiting and overlooking some things.
Well,
right?
Nowadays, you're gonna have
Maybe.
to find some of that NIL money.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need to get in that transfer portal.
Well, there's a lot of triple eagles in the area that could fork over some money, right? You know what a triple eagle is?
What are the triple eagles?
It's a person that goes, I believe it's a person who goes to BC High, Boston College, and then Boston College grad.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
BC
triple
High.
eagle.
I heard of the double eagle. I never heard of the triple eagle.
I know some single
I don't think the
eagles.
grad students are doing much good for Billy O, though.
BC High. Please.
We
See
talked
Spotlight?
earlier about the game in
What was that?
Brazil, and Christian from Virginia writes in, the drama down there is that Sao Paulo's soccer rival, Corinthians, main color is green. So Sao Paulo fans don't really love people wearing green in their stadium.
Oh.
This then got twisted by media into some gang violence nonsense,
why I said it
which
was
is
urban
most
legend.
likely what you guys were hearing.
Yeah. I mean, the good news for those fans, though, is neither team will be wearing green. Eagles and Packers. Won't be much green in the stadium.
That's as green as it gets.
I thought it was serious.
We couldn't have got the Jets involved in it? We had the
Both
Jets down
teams
there?
have green.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ron in Conway, New Hampshire. Okay, Evan, he says, and the rest of the guys too, I guess. I'm not excited about this season, even though I really want the team to do well. So after listening all season, there was a small amount of conversation of when Cole Strange comes back, if he could possibly play center. If so, how do you think the O-line would look next year if everyone was healthy and the line looked like this, with May at quarterback, left tackle to right, draft Will Campbell, then Sau or Robinson, Andrews, Onwenu, and Caden Wallace in the draft after Campbell? I wonder what the team would consider as a pick.
Is there a period in here somewhere?
Yes, there is no period.
I was like,
so
I would need to know what So, Robinson, and Wallace play like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if they're good enough that you don't feel like you got to replace them,
If
then maybe you're implying
yeah,
that,
but
that
are they the
were
best
okay.
I have, or are
Yeah.
they good enough?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
They're guards.
Like Andrews, I have an idea of what he'll look like, and I have an idea of what Onwenu will look like,
Well, we
especially
need
at guard.
to start thinking about life after David Andrews.
No,
Yeah, but that's not gonna
it's
be
absolutely valid.
Cole
We got a
Strange,
question
right?
in the mailbag this week about that.
Yeah.
With Strange, I'm sure that's one of the
okay.
things.
He's a backup center if he's going to play.
My
center, right?
fear with the whole center thing is like let's not Cole Strange center. Like let's not draft one in the first round because David Andrews retires. Like center is.
I know, but I'd rather have him.
But it's not.
You know, like if he can be a good center, it's just like McCourty, Devin.
Yeah.
You know, you drafted him as a cornerback. You realize maybe he'll be better as safety, and you switch him over.
Yeah, I think the issue with Cole Strange to me at center is that he's tall. Like he's a little bit upright to play center. Like he's like 6'3", 6'4". It's a big center. That's a big center. And I typically like more of like the David Andrews types of centers that can get underneath guys and is got a low center of gravity. So that'd be my one thing. But if they draft Campbell or Kelvin Banks Jr. or whoever, and he's a franchise left tackle, the whole thing is going to be fine. You know, it's going to look a lot better.
855-PATS-500 is the Ace Ticket Hotline. Rodney's in Delaware. What's up, Rodney?
Hey, guys, I had a question. So,
Rodney.
Looking at the tackle, you can you hear me?
Hot Rod.
I get no respect.
Doesn't happen.
Eldred's
Doesn't happen when I take the call.
Eldred's in North Carolina. Hey, Eldred.
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Rodney was there.
No.
Oh, I didn't hear him.
Yeah.
Not fast enough.
Hey, can you hear
No
me?
soup for you.
I can hear you,
Hear
Eldred.
the Big E.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Fred, thank you for defending me a little bit. For all you peons that don't understand the chart, like I said, I didn't make it up, but Deuce, you picked up on it right away.
I did.
You know, it's the talent level, knucklehead. If you can't understand the talent level, go back, listen to the podcast, and they'll explain everything to you.
Well, I understand
Lower
talent
team.
level. I don't understand pink, orange, blue, green, all that.
Fuchsia.
Pink is a young like May. He's an upcoming star,
May's
but
pink.
you don't know what he's gonna be like. But he's up there. Him and maybe.
Yeah, we understood it, Eldred. To
Okay.
be honest with you, with too many categories.
Yeah.
I know, but
That's
that's
all.
kind of those they got to build a foundation of a championship team. That's what that means for the peons that don't understand football chart. But
go.
that's that. But other than that, my question is
Turquoise.
the guys that they brought up that they put free agency wide, well, practice squad, those tackles and that guard you was talking about. any way they push for a starting position than the ones that we got?
Oh, the
You're
ones
talking about
they
the
got
guys
on
they
waivers.
picked off of waivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, one got the waivers.
I would highly doubt that.
Yeah, DeMontre Jacobs has got some tools, but it seems like
it's
Trey Jacobs. I stand corrected. He's got some tools, but he's the developmental type of player, good athlete, big, 6'6", 315, 320. But I don't know if he's ready to contribute at that the way Eldred is talking about.
Plus, he's got to learn the system and everything.
Yeah.
Jeff is a whole lot better than what we seen during preseason.
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Just
I don't know about
say the
that.
quarterback.
He could, I don't know if he's better than Vidarian Lowe.
These are guys that got cut.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Guys that are off waivers that are on their rookie contract that get cut, I don't think would qualify as better than what you have.
If we're going to believe our earlier emailer, there's not too many teams with good offensive lines, and they got cut.
And they're young ones that are making nothing.
Yeah.
Because they can't have 4 or more years experience to have to go through waivers.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thanks
Well,
for the
I'm looking forward to Sunday, but thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Eldred.
Thanks for the call.
Big E.
Rodney's back.
Rodney is back
Try not
from
to hang up on
Delaware.
him this time,
Rodney,
Fred.
you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You guys hear me?
Okay, we can hear you. Yep.
I said, seeing how bad the offensive line is doing right now, why not the Patriots try to make a trade for Walker Little from Jacksonville so that we don't have to spend the first-round pick on the tackle and take the Terrell McMillan from Arizona? Is that a viable option?
I don't really believe Walker Little is anything special. If I remember correctly, he was also there's something weird with him in the draft. He's like injuries or he's like older or something. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I don't. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I watched a bunch of Walker Little tape over the last couple years, but I don't recall him being like.
Bet Alex did.
We've now solved this problem
only on Saturdays
at tackle. Like I don't really view him quite on that level.
He's 25.
Yeah. There's something about him in the draft. I don't remember.
So just out of curiosity, if he's so good, and
Thanks, Rodney.
he would be better than drafting Will Campbell as an example. Why is he available?
Yeah.
Like the whole notion of picking up someone else's scraps, so you don't have to take one in the first, the top 5, doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you assume that Walker Little is a better option than Will Campbell?
Oh, yeah, so it was injuries. So in college, in his last 2 years in college, he played 1 game because he had so many injuries in college.
It's unproven, untapped talent.
So I remembered kind of
finally
correctly.
healthy.
But, yeah, I mean...
Second-round pick in 21.
Yeah.
So he's available, I assume. Forgive me, but I don't know the depth charts of 32 teams on the offensive line.
I'm very surprised, Paul.
So this is a guy who should be, if he's that good, and he went in the second round instead of the first because of injuries at Stanford, right?
Yep.
But he's not playing for the Jags?
No.
So we can get him, and that's better than Will Campbell.
Well.
And by the way, the guy that he mentioned, and this is I'm not picking because the guy had an unbelievable game. The guy you mentioned, the receiver from Arizona, can't pronounce his first name, but we call him T-Mac.
Yeah.
He's got
he was talking about Ted McMillan? McMillan, excuse me.
He had 300 yards receiving in the opening game. And he is considered to be one of the top wide receivers coming out, right?
Yep. I am very intrigued.
So
antennas are all the way up.
Which guys?
So he goes to University of Arizona.
I know the backup quarterback.
McMillan.
At Arizona,
So his name is I think he's like Samoan or something. I should probably know that. Not just
I
say
saw
I
some
think.
highlights of him.
So Ted McMillan. I keep saying McKillen for some reason. You kind of just say it for short, but he is a prototypical. Talk about X receivers. Like he's 6'5". He's in the same body type of like a Drake London in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Some people say Mike Evans. I've retired Mike Evans from player comps. I think he's too good. Like I don't try not to comp people to players like Mike Evans, but he's in that sort of category of like big time outside receiver, moves incredibly well for his size and is going to be top 15, 20 pick in the draft next year.
Ted in Las Vegas writes in, I haven't heard the question asked, who will be the backup quarterback to Brissett and who will be the emergency third quarterback. It was asked and
it was
answered.
asked.
Yeah,
Drake May.
Drake May is the backup quarterback. He says, I think I'd prefer Milton to be the backup rather than May, and May be the emergency. I don't know if May's first appearance should be coming in as a backup.
Why?
Well, no matter when at this point, no matter when he comes in, he's going to be coming in as the backup.
Well, I think his point is he would like him to prepare that
in the middle of a
week
game
as the starter.
Yeah,
but I don't really know why.
know.
What's the difference?
Yeah, let's not coddle the guy.
We're already coddling.
And what
the
did you
guy.
see from Joe? Like I was kind of disappointed in Joe Milton's summer, to be honest. Not that I was expecting much, but I just didn't see a lot of progress, really. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe it was there
yeah.
if you looked at the minor details, but
5 for 18, not doing it for you?
No.
That's a good way of putting it, Mike. He kind of did. It wasn't that he was ever terrible. It just he had that one opening preseason game was good, and then it just kind of leveled off from there,
Yeah.
and it never. Drake May got better.
The last two
he
preseason games were really rough for Milton.
It just became throw the ball deep. Like, just
And-
throw the ball deep. That's all I want to
And
do.
that kind of coincided with him, and this is probably not coincidental, with him really getting almost no reps.
Yeah.
Toward, like
That's fair.
once the preseason game started, his reps almost disappeared in practice. So it's probably not a coincidence
Stunted
that
his
his
growth.
performance in
Yeah.
the games really went down.
David Main writes in, when Coach Mayo announced Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback, I really wish a media person would have asked him if starting the solid but non-mobile average quarterback over the young athletic playmaking rookie was something he learned from Bill. Mayo is so bound and determined to be the opposite of Bill that I bet he would do a 180 and start May instead. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I do think there's some truth there. That brings me to my question. In your opinion, why was Bill so terrible about building offense? From N'Keal Harry to taking Cole Strange in the first round to making Matty P the OC, I feel like in the last few years he drafted a lot of old linemen, yet here we are. Do you think this was just a lack of respect for offensive football? Was he trying to sabotage Mac because he didn't want him to in the first place? I still, to this day, can't understand how the greatest coach ever made such terrible decisions.
How long are we going?
I think he struggled late. I mean, I don't think he had a hard time. Now, obviously, Brady helps that, but I don't think we picked apart every move that he made offensively over the years. Now, certainly, Mike plays the greatest hits of the last 7, 8, 9 years or so. He struggled, and I think it was less about identifying, like N'Keal Harry's an identification problem. That's an evaluation issue. I think they ignored it more, too often.
Towards the end, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's as cliched as just the old guy who gets set in his ways and just doesn't want to change. And
that's kind of how I
got
feel
used to
about it.
having a quarterback and an offensive coordinator who just kind of made things run. And
the
but
only
it's
things
bizarre.
he could still do was the offensive lineman. Like Onwenu was his, so was his. Those are guys that are playing, and I would count David Andrews in that group,
Yep.
even though he wasn't a draft pick. He was an undrafted rookie that they developed, and he played right away.
It's just the high round misses. And I think the thing that stood out to me was like when Drake May or Christian Gonzalez is on the field this summer, they're different. They're different. They are super talented, athletic guys. And there was none of those guys on the roster the last few years. I mean, it was so hard. The high round misses, the lack of talent. But there's a lot going on there. I will never be able to figure out, though, how the Matt Patricia thing of it all, coaching the line, how that was supposed to work. How was that supposed to work?
I think that Bill got overconfident when he drafted Stephen Neal, and he ended up being a really good guard.
I think Stephen Neal was undrafted, wasn't he?
He was, but I think
you
that
get the point.
Yeah. But I think that they had really good success with linemen.
Yeah.
I think that
and because they had Dante.
Well, because he also, I think, to Mike's
And you
point,
had
like
Tom
you get
Brady.
set in your ways.
Yeah.
Like linemen haven't changed dramatically. Now there's some that's maybe moving to a more athletic lineman. But there's still like the principles of line play
Yeah.
are the same.
He's still over
You got to block the
300
guy in
pounds.
front of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Offense in general has changed dramatically, and I think as it's gone from Corey Dillon leading the way to the quarterback being the focal point, I think he's been slow to adjust.
Yeah. I just think he never put the value in the receiver position the way that the rest of the league did. Like that trend hit, and he was still, I'll just draft this guy or sign Devontae Parker, trade for Devontae Parker,
depressed
Nelson
assets.
Aguilar,
Yeah.
Kendrick Bourne, and I love Kendrick Bourne.
Well, I think I think there's a whole thing. It comes down to locker room economics. He was very aware of, what the economics and the culture of the locker room was, and I think he looked at as a football team as this unit that, I'd rather have a bunch of guys who love football, can play together, are coachable, football's important, than have these one or two divas. And I think he was really wary of getting those types of guys on his team.
I think
and when he did, they were like the retreads that used to be a diva.
Depressed assets.
Right.
Randy Moss.
And never won a ring, and now was just grateful to be given that chance. And so you come in with that sense of gratitude and loyalty to me. I know that if he was here, he'd call me a moron. And I'm being serious. But I think there's something to that.
But that was just about content, not necessarily about your take.
Well, I do think, Fred, you could be right about that, but it's like, but once the team starts losing, then no one cares about the hierarchy. They just care that you suck and you're getting your teeth kicked in every week and you can't move the ball.
You don't have enough talent to move the ball.
You know, I mean,
but you have Tom Brady.
It just felt like they never. He never valued the wide receiver position the way the rest of the league was starting to value it. And the NFL is one of those things where, like, the money, just follow the money. Like, what are teams spending money on? And all of a sudden, the wide receiver position just became a $30 million a year position for the elite guys. And he would never pay a wide receiver that kind of money because he just didn't see the value in it. And he didn't.
Well, it's again, you might be right in terms of not seeing the value in it, but the reason he didn't value it is because of how it would disrupt his locker room and how it disrupted the pecking order.
I don't think that's the whole. I think that's valid.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely valid. But I think what Evan's saying is valid too. It wasn't just the hierarchy.
You can't say he didn't value Randy Moss. Of course he did.
Yeah, but at that price
again,
and falling in
a depressed asset.
And as soon as Randy Moss.
But I think as important as what you're talking about is the mentality of the grateful attitude. Like, you owe this to Bill.
That's right.
It's not just about the money he was making. It's I'm giving him his last chance.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm going to get the most out of him. Now I don't mind if he's going to get some money.
Yeah.
But because he owes it to me.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of it. There's a lot of things that people have said about what Mayo has done so far that, well, Bill never would have done that. It's been a lot of things so far.
Yeah.
Most of which I don't think are true. Like when they signed Barmore to an extension and Stevenson to Bill would have never done that. They just did the same thing like last year to Godshaw and to Devontae Parker.
Right.
Guys like that, right? This is one that is 1,000% true. There's no way they would have gone as aggressively after Brandon Ayuk as the Patriots did.
Right.
Yeah.
Offering a $30+ million annual value contract and investing resources to get him. Now,
but what's the guarantee, Paul?
But if somehow he fell through the cracks and he becomes Randy Moss, and
Right.
I can get him for a 4th-round pick and pay him peanuts, now he owes me.
Right.
Yeah.
These guys were looking to come here. I agree with Evan. He does not value that position.
He looks at
like
teams
everybody else is now.
He looks like at teams like Miami, who it's
dumb. He thinks that's dumb.
3 players are taking up however much of their cap. It's Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, and he's like idiots, right? But the rest of the league that's how it's now being structured.
Well, it used to be like, well, how do you sustain that? Well, you can sustain it by manipulating the cap later on. So
right,
now
the cap is so high.
Yeah, so Tyreek Hill decides to retire, which I thought, by the way, he was going to do after this year. But anyway, so he's gone. All right, so maybe you're left with a whole bunch of dead money. You figure it out by moving some other contracts around. There's a way to sustain it.
Yeah, he went on TV, whatever gig he was doing, and he was waxing poetic about how great of a job Kansas City has done running their cap, completely ignoring the fact that they have Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. And it's like, when Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, you can trade Tyreek Hill, and you still are going to win Super Bowls because you have
just
Pat
like
Mahomes.
what they did for years and years here. And again, it just speaks to the
right.
Listen, we don't have to beat up on Bill. The guy's track record and resume speaks for itself, but it just speaks to his mentality that he still thinks it was about him and not about Tom.
The problem is, and listen, I love Bill. I'm grateful for everything he's done, so don't get me wrong. But when he says that, no one challenges him.
Well, because
nobody pushes back. But they have Patrick Mahomes
because they're just so happy to be around. Like it's like, do you watch College Game Day?
They got rid of Tyreek Hill and they still won a Super Bowl.
Suddenly, it's like Shecky Green Saban up there. Like he comes out and says, you got to run the football. Oh, that's so true, Coach. Coach, that's so true.
Well, that's just because it's Pat McAfee.
It's unbelievable the way they fawn over Bill and Nick Saban. Like, listen, great coaches, arguably the best to ever do it at their respective levels.
Right.
I'm not telling you anything is overrated, but does everything they have to say be so insightful? Does it have to be like mind-bending like football knowledge when they're just talking in generalities like everybody? Like, did you hear the Saban thing this week? Like, that they have a $20 million roster with NIL. Well, they better have the right $20 million, otherwise it'll go worth a bleep. You would have thought that, like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? You don't want to waste money on bad players?
Right.
Like this is like insight?
Right.
Like you want to make sure that if you're spending a lot of money on your roster, those guys play.
Right.
And they're good.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the same in the NFL.
Right. If you have a first-round draft pick, you better make sure you use it on a good player.
You better make sure he's not bleep.
Right.
You should have told him.
Yeah.
I think that 2019 season, though, is such a good example because you draft N'Keal Harry in the first, you went and grabbed Antonio Brown, and then you traded a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu. It was like, 3 different pieces that showed that they were kind of searching for it, but picking the wrong guys.
That's why I said the evaluation was an issue with Harry. There were guys available that were a lot better than him. And as we all know, the Bobo told us that if we thought that DK Metcalf was a better player than N'Keal Harry, we were an idiot.
Is Carey out of the league now? Did he get cut? I know he got
Probably.
cut, but I think
But that's what Mike
he
Lombardi
switched positions to tight end.
That's what Mike Lombardi famously told us, right? If you think that DK Metcalf was a better player than N'Keal Harry, yes, I know his name is N'Keal, but he called him N'Keal.
It's just always so tough for me.
The captain in N'Keal.
Yeah.
when we can look at it as media types, layman's, as Fred likes to say, and say, you drafted N'Keal Harry over A.J. Brown and Deebo Samuel. Like, what are you doing? But then the greatest coach of all time, like, evaluated the players and came out with N'Keal Harry, and it just
doesn't make sense.
It just that's the part that I can never.
Well, and
compute.
this goes back, and this is why I kind of agree with Evan, how he just doesn't really value that spot. And it goes back to that excerpt from that book a long time ago with Dimitrov talking about when he made the move in Atlanta to move up to get Julio Jones, and he called Belichick and asked for advice, and he said, "Why would you do that? Just stay where you are and take Jonathan Baldwin."
Right.
Again, I don't want that guy. Like, this is why I think both of you are right.
Yeah.
I don't want the entitled star.
Right.
I want the workman-like guy
That's
who's
right.
going to be grateful to me for drafting him
For
in the first round.
For all we know, the background on N'Keal Harry compared to some of these other guys was he's a lot lower key.
Down player.
He's not as hard, not as much of
He
a
blocks.
handful.
He probably liked the physicality and blocking
yeah,
ability.
sure. I mean, he looks like an Adonis. I mean, it's not hard.
Oh,
I mean,
he
Evan
looked
talked
apart.
about the
Yeah.
prototypical acts of.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at N'Keal Harry without watching him play and just see his body type and say, he's got the size to play outside. He's got a willingness to, you could maybe understand what they were trying to sell themselves on, but this
He
is
was good when he wasn't throwing up behind the light pole.
We just had two left feet.
Wild about Harry.
Remember that one practice? Anyway, Travis in West Virginia writes in.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't remember that?
Probably more an off-air comment.
Travis in West Virginia is the new pre- and post-game guy, talking about
Matthew
no
No
socks, going to be the host for the whole season?
Yes.
If so, would you mind giving me a quick bio of him just so I know his story and the genesis of his nickname? Well, he's the senior executive producer of the Patriots, so all the the preseason game and the TV shows that you see, he produces all of those. And he came here 20 years ago?
Oh yeah, at least
from Channel 5. He was a producer there, and I believe. Well, we know that we call him No Socks because when he wears shoes, he doesn't wear socks. When he wears sneakers, he does.
Yes.
But I believe I don't know if No Socks would admit this, but I think he got the no shoes with socks from Mike Lynch,
swinger,
who was the sports guy, longtime sportscaster here in Boston. And whenever I'd see them, because back then Channel 4 wasn't the station, was Channel 5 was the partner with the Patriots.
The All Access one was Channel 5.
Yeah, it was Channel 5. And when Mike Lynch would come in here to film, he'd never have socks with his shoes.
Yes, my first stint on All Access was Channel 5.
So I think Matt No Socks got it from Mike Lynch.
He also loves flops. Matt Smith. So when you guys say no socks, I always think about him on the road, just walking around with the dogs out. Just all the time.
yeah.
Matt is also the co-host of Pass from the Past with Paul.
That's right.
He's also an Ithaca College bomber. So shout out.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
So his long career, mostly behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Not on behalf, behind.
Behind.
And now he's, he asked Mike and I, like in the off season, when we figured out that Hardy wasn't coming back, well, what do you think if I hosted it? You know, of course, he's my boss, so I didn't really feel like I was comfortable enough to say, well, I really don't like that idea at all, man.
But he knows he's been around a lot, and as I said on the air during the pregame show, he's down in this KSP studio, so there's just a high amount of foot traffic. So he's talking to everybody, and he knows a lot.
It's constant chatter. But he is one of my favorite road trip guys that I've ever road tripped with.
Oh, yeah.
I call him Appetizer Matt because you go to a restaurant with him,
you're getting
and he's got a Bud Light in his hand. And
before you even get through the door.
And then he tells the waiter, why don't you bring another Bud Light? Because by the time you get back, I'll be done with this one.
Has a hole in it. Usually says this one, I've been here before, and this one has a hole in it.
Yeah. And then he'll order every single appetizer on the menu.
Right. He's a good restaurant guy.
He is a good restaurant guy.
Love him.
He's a good conversationalist.
Yeah.
He's good to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And Freddie, I mean, this is no slight to you, Freddie.
Okay.
Because we had some great road trips, me, you, and Andy.
Oh, yeah.
So we've had a lot of storytelling over the years, and Matt's right in line with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I can see, Evan, why you enjoy that.
Oh, yeah.
Travis also says,
caller.
Also, can you tell No Socks that when he takes phone calls, he doesn't need to point out that the caller was waiting patiently every single time? Chances are they're not actually patient anyway.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
So No Socks is going to have to understand that you're going to have to take your hits because our listeners and our viewers are very
nasty,
critical.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the way
they just want to get the best out of you.
That's what we
all.
want. We want biting commentary. That's what we're looking for. So I would just say that was Matt's first show this week. And I think he sort of, Mike and I talked to him a little bit about, like, you don't have to feel compelled to jump on every email and call as soon as you get it.
Yeah,
like,
let it breathe a little bit.
Let it breathe. Like, if we're talking, if there's a topic, you know, like preseason, pregame show, not exactly, 2 hours worth of content there, but there will be. You know, when the season starts, we'll have some stuff, and you don't necessarily have to, like, stop everything you're doing. Oh,
right.
Someone's up on the call screener. We got to take that call right away. I think he felt, well, he's been waiting patiently. We got to get to him. That's why he kept saying.
Fred doesn't care. He'll let somebody.
Fred,
say all day.
I do.
He'll end the show without even.
Fred, it's rude. Fred, it's rude. We just started the show.
As opposed to Hardy, who never read emails.
No.
Until
Hardy was anti-electronic.
Yeah, he didn't like people emailing.
That doesn't surprise me.
And then when he would finally read it, he'd pretend he was Shakespeare on the, but speaking of phone calls, let's get back to the Ace Ticket Hotline at 855-PATS-500. James is in North Carolina. Hey, James. James.
Hey, guys, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, good. So, first up, Paul, Captain and Keneal is sneaky good.
Sneaky good?
I like it.
That was me.
That was Fred's line, but I got it. Again, the only guy in the room that got it.
excuse me.
I'm the only one old enough.
I brought this the other day.
Hello.
Well,
sorry.
What's going on? You're doubled. Are you juggling things right now?
Car stole my phone call. It's all good.
Okay.
So, I brought this to Rook the other day. How would you guys feel about trying to address wide receiver by starting at the bottom and looking at scouting? Pittsburgh pulls gems out of the draft every single year. Nobody's thought to take a look over at their scouting department.
Yeah, well, why would Pittsburgh give up their wide receiver guru
Well,
if
no,
he's so
but,
good at his job?
Well, maybe giving him
that's
a
how you
promotion.
put less money at a scouting director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Failed wideout.
No, it's not a bad theory in identifying who around the league is a really good evaluator of wide receivers and promoting them, giving them more money and a promotion to get them over here.
So just because you want him to identify a wide receiver?
To help, ongoing, to help,
you identify
part of my scouting
Personally, I
department.
think Kevin Colbert was the reason for Pittsburgh's scouting dominance, and he's out of the league. He
That's true.
retired.
But would you say that an element of continuity there too, though? It seemed like, stable coaching staff, seemed like their system was kind of in place, knew what they were looking for, had people that had been there, had come up, knowing what they were looking. I mean, is that part of it too?
Yeah,
like
I was going to go chicken or
established
the
what
egg with it. Like, how do you know how much of it is evaluation and how much of it is development?
Thanks, James.
Because
so I would go with the development part.
Yeah.
Because like they've had some guys over the years that Antonio Brown was like a 6th round pick. Now some of that was because of the off-field stuff and
Emmanuel
things like that.
Sanders and Antonio Brown, I believe, were in the same draft, 4th and 6th round.
Yeah.
Or maybe back-to-back years.
Yeah.
Like that to me is development.
Right. That's what and Antonio Brown didn't play right away.
No,
because it was a crowded
neither did
room.
Sanders.
And so those two guys to me are like development. They also had like Chase Claypool, who was the most talented guy that's probably come out of the draft at that position in a couple years, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Had one good year and didn't work out. So yeah, they have a great track record with wide receivers. I just don't know how much of that. It's all of it. It's coaching, it's development, it's evaluation. How do you replicate that?
One other thing, I saw Brady doing one of his things that he's been doing, but he was talking about receivers that couldn't get it and guys that, this guy can't even line up right. He used Welker as an example of like, Wes, I knew no matter what, even if he doesn't catch the ball, he's going to go 100 miles per hour. He's going to be in the right place. And he was pretty forthcoming about if a guy doesn't know what he's doing, he's not getting the ball. And, so I think, and I brought it up before on the show, of he was part of that. Like, and for better or worse, and you certainly got much more good than you got bad with Brady, but I think you also had a very high bar for what it took to be successful. And I mean, I wonder if maybe some of that's N'Keal. I mean, obviously N'Keal Harry hasn't worked out, but it was tough to play for Tom Brady and to be able, and I'm sure once you were up against it, it only got harder because he's looking less and less your way. He doesn't trust you, and it gets harder. So I think he was part of it too.
If Jalen Polk does well, does that give you a little bit more confidence, or does the mistakes of the last few years still go on this current scouting department? You know what I mean?
I think a guy like Thornton, it was
still credited
was
to
Matt Groh. Remember Matt Groh belligerently speaking down to us. You've been grinding all the tape and at that post-draft press conference that year. But for the most part, this is a new group. These are new guys that are picking the players.
I mean, I'm
right?
picky. I just think to find a slot receiver, you should be able to do that. You should be able to find a guy like Polk who, looks like a solid, good-sized possession receiver. The test for me is getting the one, getting that, being able to pull an Antonio Brown out of the 6th round.
I think we got him.
Those kind of thing is that, that's the true test of talent evaluation, is finding an elite wide receiver. These guys are good and they're solid, and I think they're two pieces in place that you need to win football games. You need
Demario
these kind of
Douglas
guys.
is solid.
They're solid pieces,
that
but
was a Bill pick too.
That's true.
You need the needle mover guy
I'm giving
to
that
really
one
make
to
it.
Elliott and Macro.
No,
but you can't
that's
do
fine.
that.
No, but that's fine.
Bill was really grinding
okay with
Liberty
that.
tape in the 6th round.
But I'm okay with that. But I'm just saying it's not like they haven't been able to find complementary pieces. To Mike's point, they haven't been. N'Keal Harry was supposed to be the home run.
Right.
Right.
They haven't been able to get that guy. The high-end guys, first, second-round picks, Aaron Dobson.
Right.
And no one's killing them for Kenbrell Tompkins.
Yeah.
And
to
an
Evan's point,
undrafted free agent.
Like Evan can go out to the Shrine Bowl and see Demario Douglas and say, this guy can move. He's, I can turn on Jalen Polk after not watching college football, and I'm saying, I like this kid. I think he can, I think he has something to offer. But it's that finding that gem elite player that's going to truly take you to the next level.
It's identifying the guy like the kid from Arizona the other day and saying he can do that in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
He might be able to.
Speaking of Fresno, speaking of picking on no socks, he has a habit of sharply responding correct when someone has expressed an opinion he agrees with. If it's an opinion, it's not necessarily correct. The implication is, yes, lucky you. I approve of your opinion.
Oh man,
this last portion of the show is not going to sit well.
No. I just feel like we all
should
know
I change
him.
Mike?
We all know him so well, so all these things that they're pointing out is like, well, that's just Matt, right? And you don't know him yet.
So you'll realize exactly what Evan is saying. Matt has a lot of quirky idiosyncrasies.
Yeah. He's a character. You'll get to know him.
You're going to get to know him all season because he's going to be hosting the pre- and post-game show for the rest of the season.
Am I catching you at a bad time?
Except for that one game.
Please and thanks.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
No.
All right. That's going to be it for this edition of Patriots Unfiltered. Remember, we're back to 3 days a week. So we will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, which is the Turn the Page Day, although I know they've already looked at Cincinnati, but it's the first big media day of the season in the regular season. It'll be all about Cincinnati and the game coming up tomorrow, press conferences, all that stuff. So we'll see you at noon.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
The world's original podcast.